You're muted if you're talking. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jessica. How are you?
Good. Long time no see.
Right? Yeah, definitely. That was fun at the courthouse today.
It's exciting. Just the press we're getting, and the fact that we're bringing the GOP more libertarian. Like they're still coming here supporting us now because of this. Like it's great.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, great moment for the Libertarian Party today. Well, definitely excited to talk about that. Talk about the election tomorrow as well. Lots of good stuff. Let me just mess around with some of these settings here.
Yeah, it's fun. We're kind of like a big deal a little bit.
I stopped the screen share here. I'll only do the screen share for some of the different predictions, some notes from the guests. I'd like to go through some of the ballot measures, the congressional candidates. I want to talk a little bit about some of the 2020 and 2022 election results as well to compare them to kind of where we're at today to see what kind of differences we might expect. And we are
Okay.
live, and I'm sure you saw that. We are
Yeah,
live on
right now.
YouTube. Yep.
Okay.
So cool. I don't know if there's a way that if you wanted to added this live stream somehow to your X or Grumble or anything like that, you can. Don't worry about it if not the case. Um,
I don't know.
don't
Can
stress about
I?
that.
Yeah, I don't think I know how to from Zoom. So
Okay, cool.
no big deal.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so we're about to get started here,
Oh,
folks. We got a couple people tuning in so far.
I just hit 44,000 on Twitter just now.
Congratulations. That is awesome. 44,000.
Ridiculous. All right, I'm gonna turn on the YouTube too. Yeah, it was a really good time today. I had fun. Worth the drive down there.
Let's see. See what that looks like there. There's your X account, formerly Twitter. 44,000 followers. And 44,002. Wow. Incredible.
Oh. Hi everybody on YouTube.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So if you're just joining us, Jessica, Forrest Mommy, and myself, Brandon from Free State, Colorado, we're down at the courthouse today in Denver for the Libertarian Party's lawsuit against Secretary of State Janet Griswold for the failure of the Secretary of State to protect our elections by leaking out the BIOS passwords there. So everybody share the link here. We're going to get started. We got some great guests joining us tonight. We're going to have a jam-packed show. Nearly every 15 minutes, we're going to have a different guest join us. We got to stay tight on schedule. One of the first guests we're going to have is Mr. James Wiley and Mrs. Hannah Goodman, two of Colorado's Liberty leaders who were down
Hi
at the
James.
courthouse there today.
Can you hear us?
I don't know if he can hear us. We can see you, James.
Oh, if you said something, we couldn't hear it, but he hears us, it looks like.
Yeah, it was great being down at the courthouse today. It was really interesting. Ran into a lot of people I've met over the years or had seen online, maybe hadn't met them in person. So that was a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of people who've been involved in the election integrity movement since 2020. A lot of people who are involved with the Tina Peters situation, a lot of people down there who have been fighting for our elections here in Colorado for a long time. So pretty cool to see. And there's Mrs. Hannah Goodman there on the screen, the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Colorado, and Mr. Jim Wiley. How are you both doing today? Cannot hear you. Cannot hear you. Can't hear you at all. Can see you guys. You guys are looking still sharp from the court
Yeah,
hearing
you guys
today.
look great. You look fabulous. So
Yeah, it was super cool seeing you both down there at the courthouse today, just in front of everybody. just looking sharp, standing strong, standing tall, fighting for Colorado out there. I mean, pretty amazing stuff. You had the Attorney General, the Secretary of State, having to respond to the Libertarian Party of Colorado. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, he's gonna come right. He's gonna
They're
come back in.
going.
Maybe.
They'll be back.
Oh, what? It was exciting. It was very cool to see our people up there fighting the state, actually doing something against the state in the ways we can try, right? And it'll either work or it won't, but it's good. Find out either way.
100%. Yeah. I mean, so often you see libertarians and liberty-minded individuals just spend so much time complaining online, writing articles, doing videos and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I like to do all of those things too. But to actually see our Libertarian Party of Colorado fight in the court against our government, trying to hold them accountable, trying to hold them to the standards that they all hold us to, is pretty inspiring and pretty exciting to see for sure.
No.
It's a chance. If you look on your Zoom settings, James, maybe your microphone, whatever you have selected as your microphone, might be the wrong thing there. I can also email you the call-in number too if you want to call in on your phone, if that's easier.
It's hard. They're having trouble at the court today because so many people were trying to get on to see the live stream and they went through the WebEx. So that was kind of cool to hear that there was just too many people trying to get on it that way.
Yeah, so many people involved, so many people wanting to participate and be excited about everything. So it was pretty crazy, pretty cool. That the courthouse was packed. The courthouse was packed. So I mean, they took a little bit longer to get started. So just so people who know or maybe are just joining us, Libertarian Party of Colorado suing the Secretary of State over these leaked bio passwords. LPCO is asking for the state to basically not use any of the compromised machines, go to a hand count paper ballot system for this year's election, which is tomorrow, of course. And, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but it makes sense. If these machines have been compromised, we don't know if anybody had access to these machines, if they've gotten in there, and if they caused any kind of damage or harm to the machines that could potentially alter something or get them to connect it to the internet, anything along those lines.
Yep.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yeah, but you're sideways, just FYI, but we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Is that better or no? Not quite.
Maybe turn the phone the other way. I don't know. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah, you're right side up. So,
Can
oh,
you go back?
oh, there,
Can you
oh,
go
there
back?
you go.
Hey, Hannah, chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Colorado, somebody is asking in the chat, is the Republican Party doing something similar here in Colorado? These leaked BIOS passwords are making international headlines. What is the Republican Party doing? And why is the Libertarian Party leading this fight?
Well, so no, as far as I can tell, they just seem to be issuing strongly worded letters. So it's good to know that the party leadership really takes this seriously, with a response as lame as that. I reached out to them, in fact, on behest of a lot of people that were like, you should ask the Republicans to join. And I was like, how about no? But anyway, things aren't all about me. So I reached out to Dave and just told him, you want to join on the lawsuit? All the cool kids are doing it because a little peer pressure never hurt anyone. And let's face it, you know, he could be cooler than he is. So I was just trying to help push him in a cool direction. And he just gave me a really generic reply with, oh, I'll see what the lawyers say about it. And then I haven't heard from him since. So I think it was actually really magnanimous of me to offer to allow the Republicans to join this lawsuit. But I'm not at all surprised they haven't, because as far as like the party goes, they seemed to shy away from the issue more than hit it head on. And I just think that's unfortunate. But our two parties are vastly different in that I'm a minor party. There's only so many things that I have in my tool belt and at my disposal, whereas they're a major party. They have a lot more resources, a lot more focus, right? And my vision for the party, for Colorado's libertarians, is to radically change and reshape the political landscape. The reason that's so important is because I am a minority and I want to come in, and I'm sick of the status quo. I'm not a Republican, and that's okay if you are. You know, I get along with Republicans just fine. I'm not a Democrat, but I'm sick of the stranglehold, and more importantly, I'm sick of the Democratic stranglehold. And it would be really cool if we had that two-prong attack of the libertarians being backed by the GOP, but I certainly wasn't expecting that. I'm never going to hold my breath waiting for that. But, you know, the more that we can radically and dynamically reshape this political landscape around us through super confrontational politics, the more of a chance we have at getting in good people that are going to stand up for liberty, regardless of their party affiliation. So that's really, really exciting. And that's one of the most important reasons why we're taking this head on.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you both joining us today. It was a long day in court. I mean, it went on basically from, 1:30 to just recently, just this last hour, the court ended. So, I mean, give us a synopsis, give us your general feelings. James Wiley, Hannah Goodman, how did it go today in the courtroom, and what can we expect here?
So I think it went really well. My lawyer told me I was his best witness. So that's really, really nice. I asked Jim, I was like, was that just flattery? And he's like, no, that was true. You really knocked it out of the park. So I do feel like I represented the party well and our minority position, and why it's important to hold our elected officials accountable, especially when it comes to elections, because everyone knows, right? There's like different or like tissues that make up a body. There's your circulatory system, there's your nervous system, there's your skeletal system, right? And if you think about it, money is the lifeblood of politics. Activists are the skeletal framework, but our nervous center is all of our data, right? So for me, as chair of the party, in order for me to really understand how effective we can be in this political environment, I need the cleanest data I can get. If our elections are compromised, my data is compromised and it's not reflecting what's actually happening around me. And therefore, all of my calculations will be off for anything that we try to attempt to do as we maneuver ourselves through this political environment. So it's massively important for third parties and everyone to have obviously secure elections, right? Otherwise, what are we? Well, we're not even a democracy at that point, right? We're basically living in fantasy and being ruled by probably like an oligarchy, which we could all say is probably actually what's going on. But we really need to make sure that our elections are secure so that we're doing the best we can, so it's representing everything as it stands, not how we wish it to be, not how we're manufacturing it to be, but as it is. I'm Ayn Randian, so A is A for me always. I think Jim and Gary did an amazing job. Most people may not realize, but Jim really does a lot of the mechanics of putting together lawsuits. It's incredible what he offers to us for free.
No, you're paying me.
Well, I mean, yeah, but not what you're worth. I certainly can't afford that. And so it's really a labor of love. And it's incredible that we have such a resource in our back pocket. And hopefully we don't drain you and deplete you too early. Like a lot of times, when you get an activist good at something, we're just like, yeah, we need this thing over and over. And they're like, I'm bled dry. So hopefully we don't do that. How do you think it went?
I had so much fun. No, and I said this a couple of days ago when we first filed the petition and we were starting to get a lot of attention. I love you guys, y'all libertarians out there. And I am so grateful that you let me find your name. I'm grateful to you, Hannah. I'm grateful to the party. I'm grateful to small L libertarians, big L libertarians, election integrity advocates. The courtroom was packed and we had waiting room outside as well. I felt really good about it. I feel like we made it further in the cause of election integrity than I've ever gone before. And I've been working at this for 4 years now. We had standing. That was one of the major issues. We had controversy, the release of the BIOS passwords. We had injury, the injury to our right to vote not to mention our right to have a fair election for us as candidates in the Libertarian Party. We had the best case that we've had yet as election integrity advocates, and the Libertarian Party being willing to raise that banner of election integrity puts them in a unique position that the Republicans and Democrats can't claim. If a Democratic Party says we're here for election integrity, the Republican Party will be like sore loser. The same on the other side, and recently more frequent on the other side of things. I've always been libertarian. I didn't vote for Trump in 2020. I did today, however, vote for Trump. The difference here is the Libertarian Party doesn't expect to win. We just want fair elections.
That's not even the strategy at this point. Yes, we are trying to win elections for candidates we're running where we have good chances. Alicio Gonzalez race is a prime example of that.
He's going to win. That's the slide.
But generally, as far as the party is concerned, we've got to be real with where we're at. Where are we? Okay, if you don't know where you are, you go to the mall, you have the kiosk, you're here, right? And you want to go here. Well, you don't just magically get there. You have to figure out how you're going to do that. So here we're starting at leveraging whatever we can leverage out of whoever we can leverage in order to become more powerful, in order to increase our visibility, in order to increase our brand recognition, in order to increase trust and build relationships with people. You don't just get elected with no relationships with people. Politics, what does that mean? Simply put, how do you want people to act in society? People is that key component. You have to build relationships with them. So by doing the things that we're doing and not heavily focusing on winning a congressional race, but using that to spoil races where it is appropriate and necessary, that's the strategy. And so this is just one more little piece of leverage we have now in chinking out different areas of this machine in order to break it. So it's super exciting.
I want to build on something you said real quick about relationships with people. There's a relationship that's been really important to this process. And I want to reference a question that you asked earlier about the Republican Party. I want to reference Mr. Scott Gessler, the former Secretary of State of Colorado Republican, who brought Dominion voting systems to Colorado, now represents Trump in the case to take him off the ballot that Jenna filed with the Colorado Supreme Court, and won at the Colorado Supreme Court, lost at the U.S. Supreme Court to get him off the ballot. Gessler represented in that case and was able to represent him in the current situation. And what Gessler has been doing so far is writing strongly worded letters against Jenna Griswold, his friend who runs these machines for him as his successor. Gessler, Wayne Williams, Jenna Griswold. That's the line of succession there. And they're all good custodians and good servants to the voting systems industry that uses electronic voting primarily. So we have this guy claiming to represent Trump's interests, who every step of the way has been pro-voting machine, anti-voting integrity. And the issue that we have there is the Republican Party isn't going to all of a sudden go against Trump and what his attorney's advising him, ill-advising him, you might say, but he is going to, the Republican Party is going to sit on their hands and do nothing to stop the state. Because as far as Gessler is concerned, they don't want to confront the state. They don't want to confront Jenna because that reflects poorly on Gessler and his choice to bring the voting machines to Colorado. So if he wants his U.S. attorney position or whatever he's going for in the Trump administration, I'm sure he's looking to get influence out of representing Trump in this, but he's misrepresenting Trump's best interests and failing in his duties as his attorney. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and how often in politics do we see people act, they're all bark but no bite? They say the right things, they write the letter, but nothing ever comes of it. And people get so frustrated, I think. I've met so many people over the years who are well-intentioned people. They see this kind of thing happen with Gessler and other people, and nothing ever comes of it. But that was one of the most impressive things with the Libertarian Party of Colorado here is, it was a days. It was days after this was discovered, after it was publicly announced in the news, lawsuit filed before the election because time was of the essence last Friday, and then lawsuit filed, and you're in court today. That was the most impressive things, how quick it was all able to happen.
I am all bite and no bark. That is my problem. And then we've got Jim Wiley, who is of the same condition. So, I think we should probably encourage people to bite more and bark less. Act. You know what I mean? Don't be about it. Don't talk about it. Be about
I do
it.
talk a lot of shit too.
Well, I say I'm going to do something. Feeling cute. Feel cute. Might sue Jenna Griswold later. 2 hours later, filed. You know what I mean? I'll bite. So it's been fun to make besties with her. I got to be honest. I'm enjoying it. I don't know if she is.
We did try to subpoena her, but her attorney refused to accept service on her behalf. So basically, Jenna declined to appear before the court today. That's the situation. So not only that, but several other fact witnesses who would like to be there. So
There wouldn't have been any more room at that table. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they had as many people around as they could. It was a full court. It was a tough day. I'm grateful for the court for giving us a hearing again. This is the furthest that we've gone in the cause of election integrity here. So I have a deep-seated gratitude in my heart for the court and giving us this opportunity. But I'm not going to play like it was an easy time. We fought to get our witnesses certified as experts, and we only got one of them. And we fought in our cross-examination to be able to ask questions that the judge sustained the objections frequently. And we understand that sometimes that happens, but we're still very grateful for the opportunity to have the evidence heard by the court. It's something that we haven't seen in my 4 years in the election integrity cause.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was very impressive. Good effort. It was great seeing this day in court where finally, there's some pushback against the Secretary of State. There's some challenging over the legitimacy of these elections. And what did you think was your strongest piece of testimony today, or your strongest witness, or like the strongest argument that your team made, would you say?
The law. The actual Colorado law, where it's like, for elected officials, if there has been a breach, basically, what is it? Tell me.
So somebody who knowingly publishes or causes to be published any of these BIOS passwords is guilty of a class 5 felony and shall immediately have their access restricted. So Gary likes to use this analogy. You don't immediately lose your license for DUI. You don't immediately get executed for committing murder. No, there's these other things that come before that. But when it comes to this aspect of law, you immediately have your access restricted. Did Jenna Griswold restrict her own access? No, that didn't happen. And it should have happened. And nobody else in her office took it upon themselves to restrict her access and go to the courts and say, hey, my boss shouldn't have access to this. Or in fact, the entire person of the office of the Secretary of State, in an argument Gary made, the entire person of that government entity is invalidated from their ability to participate in these elections and should be restricted and recuse themselves entirely from the entire elections. It needs to be decided on the county levels, as it always has been in the past. An argument was made that for 125 years we did hand counts in the state since the state was a state, and then all of a sudden this is unprecedented that we would do a hand count. Ooh.
I mean, and think about in the Wild West days when they were driving cattle up Federal Boulevard. How many people in Colorado know they drove cattle up Federal Boulevard for like 75 years or more, right? So you have cowboys way out on the range, up in the mountains, mountain ranching, doing all kinds of things. Do you know they would have to come, like the journey just to vote, you know what I mean? And then the whole hand counting and all of these things. If they could do it in these primitive times, I can almost guarantee we can do it in these modern times. So to say that we can't hand count is absolutely ridiculous, and that it would restrict people's ability to vote. Well, what about history? Like,
have we devolved so much? We're not so dependent on Skynet technology. Like, is this the machines taking over? Another really. Oh man, that wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry.
I was going to say quickly that, I've been tracking a lot of Jeffco spending, and the Jeffco clerk's office and what they spend and what they've been caught in. You know, there's another thing with Jeffco clerk Amanda Gonzalez. She didn't properly notice elections last year, and that came up in Jenna's other try or hearing for the impeachment hearing, and they were like, oh, that doesn't matter. Well, nothing came of that. They've been spending money left and right, so I think they can hand count. Like I've been to commissioner meetings, and they get all these awards for. She literally got an award for throwing a good party,
Oh
and then they
boy,
said,
that's what,
oh, after all these county employees were sitting in the like audience there for the commissioner meeting and like getting paid to sit there and for awards, which cost money too. Then they go, oh, we don't have enough money. Just straight to that, you know. So they can hand count.
yeah, yes. And like, why should tax dollars go to award people for parties? What? I don't get a party because I'm poor.
Oh, we're having a party tomorrow night, though.
That's true.
Elections, victory party with the Libertarian Party. So that is going to be fun. But otherwise, we don't get our own parties.
But I'm not getting paid for that.
True, I am. The further argument that I really want to highlight that was made is about these BIOS passwords and the technology behind it and the situation. So they went out there, and the chief technology security officer, who's only been on the job for 2 months. I wonder what happened to the last guy. He basically testified that he went to the Boulder County election systems and he changed the password. He reviewed the logs. He did all these things. And we asked him, is there a way for you to tell whether or not the wireless devices in any of these counties, and apparently Boulder doesn't have the wireless devices, they were physically removed, but many counties in Colorado do have the wireless devices in, like, physically in the device, in the laptops and the desktops, and they can be enabled through the BIOS. And there is no way for them, and he said this, there is no way for him to be able to tell if it was switched on and then back off. He can tell if it's on or off in the moment he checks, and they haven't seen anything that is of a particular concern apparently. But that doesn't mean it wasn't switched on and off. And how long does it take once it's switched on for it to be totally compromised?
Well, and
Minutes.
the lady expert, she's like in the administrative aspect of things.
Yeah,
She was
the
talking
pink-haired one.
about, yeah, of course, the pink-haired one was their first witness.
Don't assume her gender.
Oh yeah,
The judge assumed her gender and had to apologize for that.
So with that, she talked about the only time they change BIOS passwords is after the certification process. So they're circumventing their own process. She looked like a deer in the headlights when we proved they're basically circumventing their own certification processes, but just by going in and inadvertently changing passwords. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. And she had to admit that, and that made her very angry. Which I find pink-haired people tend to be very irrationally angry. But who am I?
I was gonna add too, like how eloquent Gary was compared to all of them were terrible. All of them, all the ones that got up to speak were terrible.
They sounded like they were in high school debate club. But I guess that's DEI hires for
that's
you.
what happens.
Yeah, Gary did a great job, really well spoken. He kept his cool. Even when he was hit, there was a couple curveballs thrown at him. He kept his cool, figured it out. It was great seeing him go over to you, Jim, for some counsel. You know, kind of touching base with you a few times, especially towards the end there. That was pretty cool to see. But I really appreciate you guys. You guys did awesome today. Please keep us updated. I'm sure are we expecting to hear something tomorrow then? Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I'm sure it'll be all.
And then depending, we'll file something in the Supreme Court if we have to.
Been there before. I'll do it again.
Awesome.
Mr. Forrest Mommy already said he hopes you guys take it all the way to the Supreme Court. So.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome. We'll really appreciate you guys. I'd let you get some rest here. Thanks for jumping in. Definitely encourage people to support the Libertarian Party of Colorado. Please contribute. You know,
Yes.
they're doing the good work, suing the Secretary of State, standing up for your vote, standing up for the rights of the people in Colorado. Nobody else is doing it. I mean, this is historic stuff. So please support the party. And if you're in Denver tomorrow night, come on by to the Libertarian Party's election night party. Hope to see you there. So awesome, guys. Appreciate you.
Yep, we'll be there. We'll be there.
Bye.
Awesome. We'll see you there. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for jumping in. Awesome. What's your takeaways, Jessica, from that court hearing today?
I think it made the Libertarian Party look great. I think our experts looked great, and our experts were actually like fiery. They, like he's that Sean guy is one of us from what he like had said. He's been taken down by the media for things he said that are just like normal libertarians kind of say. So it was really interesting listening to him. It was interesting listening to him not let them try to churn his words, which is very important. I liked how he spoke. This Sean Smith fellow, um, he he was just very good at what he does. So I appreciate him, and he's like that. Like someone asked, I think it was Gus just asked about that. The second guy who talked, he was seemed pretty cool too. He had a great accent, but they didn't want to make him an expert, even though he had done the ethical hacking. But their expert had never done anything like that. It's interesting that they did that, but no, it was and I'm so thankful that everything that's happened over the past 4 years. I really do feel like the GOP people in Colorado are really appreciating the work we're doing because we really do need to fight the state. And I think a lot of the GOP people are figuring out it's not just about doing campaigns anymore. It's not just about we are fighting this web of progressive fascism in Colorado, and we all have to work together. Someone's got to be brave and step up. And I think this is a perfect thing for the third party, especially the libertarians, to do. Like, this is what we should be doing. This is like a good thing to do instead of other crap that wastes our money.
Yeah, and fight on all fronts. I mean, that was something Hannah talked about just a few minutes ago was, you fight where you can, you got to fight and chip away every opportunity you have. And that's just it. You can't, especially in politics, you can't wait for that perfect slam dunk or that perfect home run, whatever it is. That doesn't really exist. You got to fight every opportunity you can. So, hey, Secretary of State screws up, sue him, go after him. You know what I mean? Anytime the governor, any of these people that are trying to control our lives, trying to completely destroy our state. Anytime they screw up, go after them. And that's what the Libertarian Party has been doing. That's what the Republicans need to do. That's what anybody who believes in liberty and freedom across our great state has to do is hold these people accountable and be ready to fight at a moment's notice because these people, the governor, the secretary of state, attorney general, they do so much to control our lives and we have to fight back every way we can.
And this is their one job. This is the one job is to make sure the votes are like, and that's all they've gone on about. And they've been activists about it. And all this. So no, like you said, the perfect like when I ran my race last year, I didn't know anybody in my area really. I was kind of just starting to get involved, but I jumped in and did it. And now it's been a beautiful thing since then. It's only built and made everything better. I walk to people's houses where I have meetings now, like in my actual neighborhood. I know I'm able to support local candidates for their stuff. We have Natalie Minton running and Jeffco, and like she's she's probably the most libertarian person in Colorado. Technically, she's running with the R by her name, but it's like she fights for all, and so it's fun to. That's like another way you get in. You can sue people, or you try to get in. Obviously, we all have to be being as self-sufficient as we can and building our own communities and trying to move away from. There's all these strategies, which I hate when people are like, "Oh, you're trying to get in the government." Like they try to like you're not pure enough or whatever, and it's like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, we got another guest joining here, one of Colorado's Liberty leaders, the last statewide elected Republican, somebody who is taking the fight to the Democrats, taking a fight to these progressive authoritarians in our state. Heidi Ganal, thank you for joining us.
Hi, Brandon. How you doing?
Doing great. Where you at?
I'm in Washington, D.C. I got in this afternoon. We just went and had dinner, and wow, the town is really interesting right now. We walked around a little bit. There's a huge fence now up around the White House, and there's lots of patrolling and things going on. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's it like out there? Is there an air of tension about the place, or I mean, what's the average person experiencing out there in Washington D.C. tonight on the eve of this election?
Well, I haven't been out to a lot of places. We just went to dinner and kind of walked around the White House, but it was very tense around the White House. There was a protest going on, kind of from our side, not the other side. So that was interesting. And just a huge fence that they built around the White House to protect it. So I don't know what they think is going to happen. I can't imagine they would do that if they thought Biden was going to win, but it's interesting. Or Kamala, sorry, not Biden.
Might as well be Biden, right? I mean, it's going to be the same thing where you have an elected official like Biden or Harris, and they're not really making any decisions. They just do what their staffers say, what their policy experts tell them to do. It's just one puppet for another, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree, Brandon. And hi, Jessica. Good to see you. I'm so proud
Heidi.
of, like, you're beating everybody up on Twitter. I love it. I love watching it. It
Oh,
just gives me
we
a
wish we
chuckle
could have
every day.
been there this morning. It was fun being down there. Like it was fun. We got
Oh my
yelled
gosh.
at too by the judge. Did you hear? Like everyone
What?
kind of giggled a couple times. They yelled at us.
Bad. You're a naughty girl.
I wasn't the last. It was everybody because the whole it was packed with more people on like our side of things. So like when they made the judge or the lawyer look like a dummy, the witness did, and we just kind of everybody kind of like like it just was it was exciting. It was fun to be down there.
No, I agree. That was so funny. She tried to act so stern and like, you guys better behave. It's like, why don't you behave? Why don't you honor the law? And the fact that they wouldn't let the gentleman who's the expert, I can't remember his name, the second one, not Sean, but the other one.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he had I loved how he talked. He was like from the
Yeah, and
South
he
or
was
something.
so smart. And I was like, I want to hear what he has to say. Like, why are you so against hearing him out? Like, what are you trying to hide? They were so defensive. And I listened to it just as I was driving around DC and going to my different things. And I just thought, this is not about transparency and accountability. This is about CYA and covering your you know what and making sure that we don't really find out what happened. And honestly, you guys, with all the research I've done since this audit over the last couple of years, I'm not a security expert, but I know after talking to so many security experts and people who know this stuff that the BIOS passwords are so critical. They're full of hooey. They don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to cover for their mistakes or intentional operations. And I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I just want the truth. I want to know what's really going on. If we know the truth, we can fix things. But if we don't have an honest conversation about what's going on in our elections, we can't fix anything.
That's a great point. 100%. I mean, they got to, I think the government has to do a better job of assuring people that the elections have integrity, that our votes count properly. I mean, they're so protective of the voting machines and their processes. It just creates a sense of distrust. It creates a sense that they're not being transparent with everything that's going on. And we saw that today down at the courthouse. It just let it be open to the public. You know what I mean? Let people go in and debug these machines, make it as public of a process as possible. I think that's really the only thing that can be done to restore some of this faith in our election systems.
Well, what's really disturbing that I found throughout everything that we discovered, whether it's the signature verification, the post office issues, the Wi-Fi remote access, the voter rolls, is that there's no outside experts coming in to look at our processes and systems to analyze it and say, okay, here's what works, here's what doesn't, here's how you can make it better. They all just self-regulate. And that's the story of the government, right? I mean, Jessica, you're exposing this every single freaking day. It's like we've got to have people who know their stuff to go in and look at these systems and processes, break them down, and provide transparency and tell us how to fix them. And until that happens, we aren't going to trust the government self-regulating.
No, it's like they the way they act makes us even more suspicious. It's like Dominion was like anybody who questions Dominion's voting machines, blah blah blah, is going to be investigated. It's like,
Hey,
okay.
Jessica, you're going to get thrown in jail. Don't say that.
I would love to go to no, but like even how like Mayor Johnson's out there campaigning for like one of those things, and it's like Colorado's government money isn't supposed to pay for any campaigning one way or another, but we know they're doing it through nonprofits and all this stuff. Like they're doing it in Jeffco too. It's so insane what they've done in Colorado. Like I'm glad we're all working together to fight now because like I feel that's a silver lining of today. Even if like nothing good comes of it, then we know our next move, right? Then we know like we have no recourse. Even like if we can't even say you're wrong for you should get in trouble. There should be a consequence for those being released. There should be a consequence. Like and they're like don't want to do it. So then it's like, all right,
We just have to get the general public to wake up to what's happening. I think all of us are doing our best, right? We're trying to get the word out. We're trying to speak, and thank God for X. Thank God that we have that. Because without it, I don't know what we do. Because I mean, the amount of money they have to squash us like a bug is crazy. And they have the media, and they have all the things, right? Education. And so we're like the little guys, David and Goliath, just throwing pebbles at the mountain. But if we all throw pebbles, it will matter. It will matter in the end. And I think that's hopefully what we're all inspiring other people to do, is just speak up, be brave. And I'm seeing that in this election. Like, I'm really inspired. I was so excited this morning. I left for the airport and I had my ballot and I forgot to drop it off in Douglas County before I left my little neighborhood. So I'm like trying to figure out on 470, where do I go? How do I get my ballot in before I hop on this plane? And so I stopped, I got off on 470 in Aurora and I pull over and I was like, a library, they'll have a drop box. So I go to a library and I park my car and I have a Trump sticker on the back of my car that says, I will be back. And it's got Trump with glasses on. And I know that my car is either going to get keyed or something's going to happen, right? If I put the sticker on my car, my husband's like, you're crazy. So anyway, I go to get back in the car after dropping my ballot off because I had to walk out over to the library and put it in there. And this lady who I was like, she's a totally Kamala Harris girl. Like, she looks like a total suburban housewife that like loves Kamala. She comes up and she's like, oh, I love your sticker. I hope he wins. And I was like, yes, that's a sign. That's a sign we're going to win in a big way tomorrow. And the people are waking up.
Definitely. And I think we're building momentum. I mean, I felt that today at the courthouse. I felt that over the past few months. We have so many new people joining the fight for liberty here in Colorado, so many people networking, all these people who've been fighting separately for so many years, finally getting together through X or other social media, connecting in the real world. And we're building something. I mean, we're building this populist liberty movement here in Colorado. The community's growing every week, and there's so much we can do with it. And regardless of what happens tomorrow, I think there's so much hope for Colorado. I'm such an optimist because when I see people stepping up, running for office, speaking out, getting involved, and maybe they only have that pebble to throw, right? They don't have much, but they're going to do what they can. They're going to do what they can. And so I get so inspired every day with everything we're seeing. And it's just really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, Jessica, I remember when we first met, we met for lunch with Carrie. What was that, a year ago? And we're like, okay, like we've kind of like seen each other on social media and we've like agreed on some things. Let's just talk. And we had such a great lunch and such a great talk. And same with you, Brandon. Like, as I got to know you better, I'm like, we may not agree on everything. I think we agree on a lot, the three of us, but like, I love seeing Tulsi Gabbard and Vivek and JD and Elon and RFK Jr. coming together. It warms my heart. And that's really what America is all about. And I think building these coalitions, like, I'm super excited about Nicole Shanahan and the Make America Healthy Again movement. I think that's really going to bring us together in a bigger way than we can even imagine. I think there's so many cool, exciting components going on. To your point, Brandon, even if things don't go our way tomorrow, which I think they're going to. I've been studying the data like a crazy woman. I think we're going to be okay. But if not, we'll still have these coalitions and we'll still be able to fight. And I think as they unleash their craziness on us even more, if they do win, we're going to bring more and more people under our tent and build this coalition even bigger.
Definitely. So Heidi, do you have any Colorado specific predictions? We're keeping a little running total here. If there's anything, I know you talked about when we talked previously about Trump winning nationally. I do agree with you on that. Any other specifics?
Yeah, I don't know that Trump's going to win Colorado, but I think he's going to be much closer than people expect, maybe 4 or 5 points. I also think Jeff Hurd and CD3 will win. I think Gabe's up against a lot. Like, they're throwing so much money at that race. I'm worried about CD8. I hope he wins. I really hope he wins. Lauren will take it. She's fine. The House and the Senate in Colorado, they're very strategic. They've spent a lot of money. I know Rose Pugliese and those guys are fighting like crazy to pull off a miracle and win some House seats and some Senate seats. So I feel optimistic. I don't know that Colorado is going to go as Trumpy as the rest of the country. And I'm also worried about the election integrity stuff. Like, I know too much now. I've seen how the sausage is made, and I'm really concerned, not just about the what the hearings about the Wi-Fi and the leaked passwords, but also about the signature verification and what happened in Mesa County I'm worried about the voter rolls. They're very bloated. There's a lot of weird stuff going on there. Whether non-citizens are voting, we can't even figure that out. I'm worried about the dead voters on the voter rolls, that they gave the information like they were supposed to Friday to the nonprofit, but they won't release it to anybody else. They especially didn't want to release it to me when I called on Friday. They're like, Heidi? No, we're not. We're really not talking to you. So it's like death by a thousand cuts, and we've got a lot of things to keep hammering them on, but we'll do it and we'll get things right over the next couple of years. And at Rocky Mountain Voice and with Free State and Jessica, you with Forest Mommy, we're just going to keep telling the truth until people get it and start to realize that they've been lied to so much by our liberal media.
Awesome. Awesome, Heidi. We'll really appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Really appreciate all your efforts with Rocky Mountain Voice and the election integrity fight, everything you do. Hope you stay safe out there in Washington, D.C. But any final words here and we'll let you go?
No, I'm super excited. I'm going to be a commentator for Channel 4 UK. So it's this big TV station over in the UK. And I guess Caitlyn Jenner and Frank Luntz and Boris Johnson, there's going to be an amazing group of people. So I'm going to be on from 6:45 Colorado time till 7:50. I'll post the link on my social media, but it's Channel 4 at the UK. If everybody wants to go on and live stream it, it's going to be fun. I'm going to try and be feisty and defend Colorado and tell the truth about what's going on over here to our friends over in Europe, so they get a little glimpse into the truth about what's happening.
Oh, that is so cool. Definitely be checking that out. Make sure to tune into that. And that'd be great. See you on some international media. That's super cool.
Thanks, you guys. Take care.
Thanks,
And I can't wait to watch your coverage tomorrow night. I know it's going to be feisty and good. And hopefully we have a lot of good things to talk about.
Awesome. Appreciate you, Heidi. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
Heidi. Bye.
Wow,
Should have
very
told
cool.
her to not. We should have told her to not go in the Capitol. Don't go in the Capitol.
Be careful. Yeah, be careful out there, right? Stay away from
That's what I
any...
tell everyone. No matter what happens, everyone just be cool. Let's just be cool. No one do anything stupid. Like just be cool and we'll figure it out, right? Like
Oh, I had the
you
sweetest
guys.
lady sitting next to me at the courthouse today, and she goes, "My husband said if I came down here, I was probably going to get arrested." And it was kind of
Got
funny,
older, like
you
she
know.
was a little older, wasn't she? With like gray short hair.
Yeah, she was awesome. And it's kind of funny, but at the same time, I admit, you know, there's a lot of people who feel that way. People are afraid to get involved. They saw what happened to all these people. They say, "Oh my gosh, if I go protest in front of the Capitol in Denver, are they going to throw me in a prison? Are they going to treat me like they treated these people who went into Washington?" You know, I mean, there is that real fear out there, you know, and I think it does prevent people from speaking out. You know, I'm sure people are afraid to have like a Trump sign in their yard, or afraid to have any political signs in their yard, just because you don't know anymore, right? I mean, I think that's a real problem we're facing in our country right now.
Yeah, people are. I mean, look what happened. As soon as I filed an affidavit, and an NBC News guy went after it. Like they're so powerful, and they try to scare us away from everything. And during 2020, any of the protests against the shutdowns, that was looked down upon and that was bad. But if you were showing up as Antifa and destroying stuff, and then Summer of Love 2020, that was okay. That was okay. But any other protests, and it's so obvious to us because we're libertarian, is like you're actually protecting the government. You're like, when we should all be getting together to fight against the government. And that's why I think we all have such a good coalition with Free Assange, and We Are Change. All these people who are like, we understand the real fight. Where if we maybe don't agree on some other things, we agree on the government. Like first thing this morning, I woke up to a text from someone from another group who was like, "Oh, this judge, she's bad," because a friend had texted her to tell us that the judge was like always in favor of the government, like every time they've gone up against her. So like it's just so nice to have these connections out here in Colorado now. And I typed this in the chat, but like in 2020, I felt so alone. I started Forest Mommy though, and then my first like meetup was October 2020, and now look where it's at. Like now look what we're doing. Now look what like I love it. Like I love seeing people down there that I know, that like you said, like we know, like Kim Munson was down there. I think she's gonna be on later, and then like I got to meet Ash in America finally, and she luckily Ash was allowed to have her phone because she's official media, so she was allowed to live tweet it, which is great. I saw later, I was like, oh good, she's doing a great job. Which that was funny too. I don't know if people heard it on the stream, but like I took a picture in the courtroom, but it was way early. I guess it was too early when I took that selfie of us because no one else, it had started so late. But then other people had must have took pictures, and then the sheriff was going around to them, making them show their phones that they deleted all the pictures. And then during the like after it started, the judge was like, "Okay, now who's the only media?" And they had to raise their hand, which Marshall Zellinger was down there, and then like Ash and a couple of the other girl in front of us. And then she's like, "Everybody else, put your phones in your purses or your pockets." Like it's so, like, and it's live. It's live anyway. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting.
It is interesting how in these courtrooms they want to maintain so much control. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very easy, I think, for people to either be intimidated or discouraged because they see what they do, at that level. Just wanted to throw out a shout out here to Mike Dickerson in the chat, good Greeley freedom fighter up here. He says there's not much we can do in the federal level, but we can take action in states and cities, and that is so true. I mean, that's something that you, Jessica, talk about a lot. Same with me at Free State Colorado. We talk a lot about fighting at the local level, getting involved at that local level, fighting against local taxes, protecting the taxpayers' bill of rights at the local level. There's so much we can do there. It's easy to get caught up in the national political scene, but realistically, we can have such a bigger impact at the local level there.
And there, it's is a little harder, but now that we're all more involved, it's a lot easier. And now we see all the connections, and we see like we're able to know things. And these people have gotten away with people not being involved for a long time. And like that's what happened to Colorado. I feel like everyone was prosperous in the 90s and the early 2000s, and then no one was paying attention during that time. And then these people came in to, Polis and all these people came in like with the blueprint to start taking Colorado, and they weren't paying attention. And that stops now. Like now we are paying attention, we are getting involved. Like I can go to the county commissioner meeting, Arvada meetings, and they know who I am when they walk in. Even today, like Marshall Zeller, he knew who I was. Like it's so powerful to me that like I'm a normal working class person, and we're making a difference. And I would say most of who are making the difference are like stay-at-home moms and like, all these people but I appreciate that because yeah, you could be doing other stuff with your time and with your money or whatever. And like we have some people they spend money on chorus. Some of the chorus cost money and they are spending their money on it. So it's like this is what we have to do. And everyone has to take a different piece, which makes it easy. That's like I love all the people we know. We have people who are with the school district and this like, all that stuff, which I don't know as much about. So we have all these people who know different things, and everyone's taking just what don't bite off more you can chew. We don't need anybody to get burned out. We don't want anyone burned out, right? So like it's just do what you can, but you can always do something. You can sit at home and record a video that's or like a financial advisory committee for Jeffco. You can stay home because they're live, but they're not recorded. So like you can just record meetings for people, and it's so helpful.
100%. Yeah, there's so much that can be done. Yeah, figuring out ways to get people plugged in who have that maybe limited time or they can't really go out, but maybe they can get on their computer and like you said, record meetings or submit email Cora requests. That's the Colorado Open Record Act. Things like that, I think is really important. So I was thinking, Jessica, while we're waiting for our next guest here, maybe let's talk about some of these ballot measures. What do you think? I'd love to hear your predictions here on what you think for the ballot measures.
I think it'll go through.
Which one,
H,
Amendment G?
yeah, G, I think will go through.
Yeah, I think that one's
Um,
pretty going to be a real slam dunk there for sure.
yeah, everyone wants to give. I feel like even the right or people who hate taxes and stuff will, or like we all feel like that. They should get the exemption. Um, yeah, H. Oh,
Awesome.
I listened to you guys talk about H. You and Michael talked about that. It's building another level of like a like a government, but it'll have normal people in it. And maybe our judges do need this. We need like someone to judge the judges, right? So
Yeah, I think so. I think H will pass. People, Coloradans love accountability. They like being able to try and hold some of these officials, responsible for what they do. So I think H is going to be a pretty. It's hard to. I don't think there's a lot of opposition to it either. There's not like organized opposition. I think the people who are supporting judicial discipline or judicial reform outnumber those who oppose it probably. So I think H is a slam dunk. I don't know that it's going to solve any problems. I've saw some stuff recently where and there was an article, I haven't read it yet, but talking about that maybe it's not a good thing, but nonetheless, I think it will pass. What do you think about
and there
yeah, keep going.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I think we know, so there was some stuff that was going on with the judicial courts, like someone got exposed for something recently, I believe. So, and even voting on them. And I met someone at the Jeffco GOP office. I didn't get her, but she's starting to build a website because everyone's like, what do we know about the judges? And they're trying to build a website to bring all the information together. So if we can get stuff like that going, that'll be super helpful.
Oh yeah, definitely super important. There used to be a group called Clear the Bench Colorado that Matt Arnold ran, who was really trying to push just getting everybody to vote no on retaining judges. Didn't have a ton of success, but it was nice that he was out there putting in the work and really trying. So I definitely give him kudos for that. I would say, what do you think about Amendment I, constitutional bail exception for first degree murder?
I don't know. So I don't I didn't understand that one so much.
So
I try
right
to
now
think of it
there's
like, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say right now there's kind of like a loophole. When Colorado repealed the death penalty several years ago, the state constitution says the only time you can deny bail to a person is if it's a capital offense, which means they could be facing the death penalty. So now that there's no death penalty, you have to grant bail to even people who are charged with first degree murder. So this is going to like kind of tweak that law, amend the state constitution, and say, well, hey, if somebody's accused of first degree murder, arrested on first degree murder, then you can deny them bail. So that's the idea.
Yeah, then I think that will pass if people understand it. That's the thing. I try to like, I feel like I understand it more than most normal people, but I still am stupid about them too. Like, I don't understand all of them so for the average person, I bet I bet it'll go through.
Yeah, I agree. I think crime is such a major issue. People want to vote to protect their neighborhoods, protect their families. So I think Amendment I will also pass. What about Amendment J, repealing the definition of marriage in the state constitution? So right now, the Colorado Constitution says marriage is only between a man and a woman. Amendment J would just remove that definition from the state constitution.
I think it'll probably pass because even the or a lot of the, like, I know Denver GOP said to vote yes for it and stuff. And whatever you feel about that, like I said, I actually don't believe in any legal marriage. I don't think there should be legal marriage. It should be something else. But since we're in the system, yeah, that we guys should take it out of the Constitution where it says gay people can't. Like, it should be for everyone. Everyone should be allowed to be miserable and marry. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But
Right.
like
Yeah.
that's the thing we have to work through those. Like, yeah, I don't even think, and I think a lot of libertarians agree there shouldn't necessarily be like legal marriage because we want to be contract. We would rather go like a contract way. But since we have it, then yeah, it should be for everyone.
Yeah, I
And to
think
get
that'll
the
pass.
wording out. Sorry.
Right, right. Is that the proper role of government or not? So I think Amendment J is going to pass. Amendment K, modify constitutional deadlines.
I didn't really understand that one a whole lot.
Yeah, they want to give the clerks in the county more opportunity, more time to
Well, I
get
think I
all their.
said no. I voted no to that, then I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, voting no is definitely the right call there, I would say as well. We'll see though. People like to vote to support the county clerks and this and that. They might just
Because
vote yes on it.
everybody works there. Everybody works in the government around here. I feel like everybody either works for a nonprofit or whatever. So
Well, we got another guest joining us here, star radio show host, and we saw her today at the courthouse. Kim Munson, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We can't see you,
Okay.
which, um, but awesome. Been definitely listening to your radio show every morning. Definitely encourage people at 5:60 a.m. to be listening to the Kim Munson show. It's an awesome show. You have a lot of great guests on there. And if people want to stay in touch or on top of what's happening here in Colorado, your show is definitely a must listen.
Thanks, Brandon. You're doing great work. Hi, Jessica.
hi Kim, I saw you today. I didn't get
I
to say
saw you
hi, but I
across a
saw you.
crowded room.
Yeah, it was so full. Wouldn't it feel so good how full it was? Like,
Yeah, it really
and
was.
we got in trouble for giggling, but it was like everybody giggled. Like everybody was on like the safe side a little bit.
Did you
I loved
feel
it.
like, my gosh, we were like in second grade?
Yeah, we were talking about that. She really did like scold everybody, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, I think it was the energy in the room too. Clearly most of the people there were supportive of the lawsuit. We're trying to dig into the truth. A lot of these people have been involved in the election integrity movement for a long time. So being able to see somebody up there like Sean Smith call out the court and call out the Secretary of State's office and kind of you know make them look a little foolish, I think people are really excited to see that.
Yeah, when that happened, there was giggling, and then we were told we can't giggle. So, or we get kicked out.
She let us do it 3 times and she wasn't going to let us do it again. And he called out the journalist, by the way, too. He made the journalist look bad, too. I like that Sean guy. He was
Yeah.
awesome.
He was on my show this morning. That interview will rebroadcast tonight, 10 to 11 at night on the KLZ 560 platforms. He didn't
Awesome.
say anything about the fact that he was the guy that uncovered the passwords, though.
Yeah, I was surprised to hear that. Very interesting stuff. I know he's been in the fight for a long time, so the fact that it's gonna, of course, it's gonna be somebody like him, somebody who's looking at the data, somebody who's really digging in and seeing what's going on.
Definitely. So,
Well, Kim, what do you think about the big election tomorrow here in Colorado? Do you have any specific Colorado predictions? What do you think? Do you any amendments? Any controversial picks? Do you think? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this election here? This historic time we're going to have.
Brandon, I don't know. I really think that if we had the hand count that the Libertarian Party asked for, I think that we would see a bunch of these bad things go down. But you probably saw that Prop 131, ranked choice voting. Chevron came in and put a $500,000 in that. That's going to push that over $15 million, which means that the consultants are making big bank on that. And it's a jungle primary, as you know, Brandon, as well as then this ranked choice voting. And it's really going to, I think, silence people's voices because your top vote getter may not actually be declared the winner.
Yeah, I'm really worried about Proposition 131. I do think it'll probably pass. They're so good at their marketing. They make it all about veterans and firefighters and whoever, teachers, right? They're trying to just build this case, this emotional argument for why it's a good thing. But the reality is it's gonna be a disaster, I would say. And I really want to keep track of all these politicians who are advocating for it now, like our governor, like Senator Hickenlooper, like some of these others. And then 2 years from now, when we see what a disaster it is, go back and have that long list and just put them to shame, because I think it's going to be really bad, especially like say for seniors, people who speak English as a second language, people who maybe are going to get confused with the voting part of it, and you're going to see less people vote. You're going to see more young. I think the voting will shift to more young people voting and less older people, which I think would be a disaster, honestly. That's one of the fears. And then, of course, yeah, the all candidate open primary, restricting ballot access. That's a big bad thing for the Libertarian Party, of course, is because then you could make it so the Libertarian Party doesn't have a candidate and the governor's race. It's not so simple as just filling out the paperwork, nominating somebody at convention. They actually have to be one of the top 4 in that all candidate open primary. So I think it's going to lead to some unintended consequences, at least unintended for most of the people, the good natured people who are supporting this proposition. But potentially, this is the plan all along, is to suppress certain demographics and push certain agendas and certain candidates through. So it's going to be really, really tricky.
Well, Brandon, I really think that it's going to be the rich, or the people that the rich choose will be the ones that will be on the ballot. And that's not the way it's supposed to be.
No, definitely not. It's going to be special interests and big money controlling our elections even more than they do so now.
Right.
And nobody, people don't love the political parties. Not, I don't know there's many people out there who just love the political parties. But it's one of those things where they serve a purpose. Provides ballot access for the common individual, for some working class person who wants to get involved, wants to have a voice. They can get into a party, get on the ballot, and have their voice heard and their voice amplified. If Kent Theory and this whole plan that they're pushing ends up going to fruition, it's gonna be a lot harder for that average common person to have a voice during election season. It's going to be reserved, like you said, for the really rich people.
Yes. So there's so much money that's being thrown at it, though, Brandon. It's going to be difficult to defeat that.
Definitely, Kim. Well, what else have you heard? I mean, you have so many great guests. You got your ear to the ground. You hear a lot. What are your other thoughts about what we're going to see tomorrow here in Colorado?
Gosh, it's again, I think that if we had this hand count, I think it would be a real game changer. But as you know, I created the Colorado 2024 election project. We raised money for two different lawsuits, and both of those are sitting in court at this particular point in time. But what I've learned as I've gone through this, there's a lot of different pressure points where we've got challenges. One of the first things is these mail-in ballots that are flying all over the state, and we've not really audited those voter rolls, and so that's one of our lawsuits is that we have unclean voter rolls here. And the good thing about this, Brandon and Jessica, is that we have been preemptive. And so we have standing on these two court cases. The other is with United Sovereign Americans. And the suit is that Colorado needs it to bring itself up to the minimum standards as set forth by Congress because United Sovereign Americans found lots of irregularities within the 2022 election.
Yeah, very interesting. That is huge. I mean, that's so important. This election integrity fight and kind of restoring that trust in the system is such a key component going forward to ensure that we have fair and accurate elections and that the voice of the people is ultimately heard for sure.
It's like their one job. I'm like, this is Jenna's one job. And they like, and they're mad at us for questioning them. I'm like, that's your one job. Like, and why would you be so defensive about it? Like today, I'm sure you picked up, they were just on the defensive the whole time. They were just on the defensive. They didn't their experts were like nothing compared to the other side. And this side is just like people doing it for good, like for the good of people, you know?
Right.
And they were just like bureaucrat trained people, it felt like, and they're just saying, you know, they've moved up the bureaucrat chain. So I think that was good today. It made like them, they like even their lawyer, like Gary was, I said earlier, Gary was so eloquent. He was great. And then all those girls were just like, I'm not a great speaker either. So, but I'm not a lawyer. I'm not in that job, you know, and they were just like, the whole time it felt like.
Yeah, I thought that the attorney for the Libertarians did a fine job. I thought he did a really great job. And yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with all this, but it's exciting. It's historical. And my crystal ball is just real fuzzy right now, Brandon. I don't know what to say.
Well, Kim, you've been fighting for so long. You've been fighting, using your radio platform, serving in city council, doing so much. What advice do you have for people out there, maybe watching, people who want to get involved, who want to have a voice, because so many people pay attention during the election season, during this, election time. A lot of people are tuned in, and maybe a lot of people tune out, once the election's over, especially if it doesn't go their way or their candidate doesn't win. But what advice do you have for people beyond the election tomorrow to get them engaged, to get them active, to get them fighting for our liberty here in Colorado?
Well, I know people are busy. I know young families are just trying to keep it together to take care of their children, but we all have a duty. And as you know, Brandon, I have my America's Veteran Stories show, and then also have gotten to know all the people down at the Center for American Values. We've been given something, and we have a responsibility to protect it and pass it on to the next generation. So I would suggest everybody pick one thing, at least just one thing, and focus on that. It might be your kid's school, it might be city council, it might be school board, but pick one thing and become an expert in that and stay on that because we can't look to everybody else to do this. And Brandon, one of the things that I learned, as you mentioned, I was on city council, and one of the mantras that we hear is keep everything local. But I've learned that local government can be as tyrannical as federal government, and the most local of all governments is us, and that's where we have to start, is us. And so pick something, get to know about it, something about it, and realize that we do stand on the shoulders of giants. We need to pass something great on to the next generation. And Brandon, I so appreciate all the work that you're doing, and Jessica, it's always great to see you.
You too,
Awesome,
Kim.
Kim.
I love that. Like I saw you up in Grand Lake for Ron Paul. I took a
That's
really good
right.
picture of you. You were just listening, so it just you were just I took a great picture of you, by the way. I gotta send it to you. You look
Okay, yeah,
great.
send it over. So, yeah, and he not great?
And
Uh,
he's older and like he came up to the altitude, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like
and then he had
crazy. It
pictures
was
taken with everybody. It
like,
was pretty powerful.
and
Yeah.
he's been fighting the good fight the whole time, like
Yep,
the whole time.
that's for sure. So
Definitely.
Brandon,
And
what do you think? What's going to
oh my
happen
gosh.
tomorrow?
Well, I think the big things for me is our like we were just talking about local. The local state legislature. I'm really hoping Republicans can pick up several seats in the state house. I also hope that we pick up some seats in the state senate, chip away at that Democratic supermajority in the House. I'm really hoping there's maybe 4 or 5 seats to pick up there, possibly 2 to 3 seats in the state senate. That's going to be the biggest win. It's nothing too dramatic compared to the presidential race, but I think it's more important in so many respects. I'm very excited to see some of these ballot measures. I'm really hoping that 1A fails in Arapahoe and Jeffco, that 7A fails in the entire metro area. That's the RTD one.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there's some really bad ballot measures. There's some good ones too. I know there's some controversy about Amendment 80, but I think it'll be an interesting bellwether to see if the public's appetite for school choice is as strong as I think it is. So I'm really excited to see at least how the people respond to that. And I'm hoping that this Proposition KK fails, the firearms and ammunition tax. That's a really bad one. Of course, I'm worried about Proposition 131 as well. And I really think that Gabe Evans has an opportunity to pick up Congressional District 8 and to retire Yadira Carveo. I would love to see that happen. And that would be the icing on the cake. That regardless of anything else that happens, that would be one of the most exciting wins, I think, for Colorado if that happens tomorrow night.
Well, he's been working really hard, and I think he's got a good shot at it for sure.
Definitely, 110%. And just to echo what you said earlier about finding one issue, in my mind, there's like 2 levels of activism in a way, a location based, which is your neighborhood, like we talked about your city council, your county commissioner, your school district, those things. So, if you have one of those that you focus on, and then the other's like issue based, right? Maybe you love the Second Amendment, you love our taxpayers' Bill of Rights, you love one specific topic that just gets you more motivated than anything else. And so I'd encourage people, become that expert on that one topic, and then also pick, know who your city councilor is, know who your state representative is. Find that one jurisdiction level of activism where you can meet other people in your community, and really say, hey, this is our state rep. Let's all get together. Let's watch how they vote. Let's hold them accountable. Let's support them when they do good things, and try and get them out of office when they do bad things. And I think if we just had a slight more, just a big uptick in that, a couple hundred more people across Colorado doing those types of things, we can make such huge progress and such tremendous victories. And it wouldn't be that hard. But like you said, just pick one thing, pick one topic, or pick one jurisdiction, find that and make it your baby. Spend a couple, don't think the results are going to happen overnight. That's one of the biggest mistakes I think people make when they get involved in politics is they say, okay, 2 months away from the election. I'm going to work hard. If it doesn't work out, then I'm never going to get involved in politics again. I
Right.
hear that way too often. It's got to be, okay, I'm going to do what I can now, but 2 years from now, I'm going to be that much more informed. I'm going to be that much more connected. I'm going to be that much more dangerous to the political system and really have more power than I will now. But people got to put in the work and stick with it. That's one of the keys, I think.
Brandon, this is a perfect spot to do a ask for Colorado Union of Taxpayers, which it's an all volunteer group. They've been doing good for you. That's great. And it's an all volunteer group, and we watch the legislation. We basically put our eyeballs on everything that is slated for committee, and then we will rate things regarding your pocketbook. And it is an all volunteer group, and it's $25 to join. But throughout the legislative session, you will get the email that we send to the legislators and the governor. And it is a great way to be informed on what's happening down at the State House.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Definitely encourage people to become a member of Colorado Union of Taxpayers. It's a great group. When I do my legislative weekly video with the Libertarian Party Legislative Director Michael Vance, we reference that every week. We'd look and say, okay, if we have question about the bill, what does CUT say about it? What do they say? Let's take a look, and that can help provide some guidance. So you do a great job. It's really exciting to know that that you're out there. really keeping an eye on the legislation and trying to hold these legislators accountable. I was encouraging people as well. If you have an incumbent legislator on your ballot, go to coloradotaxpayer.org, look them up, see what their voting record is in line with, do they support taxpayers or do they oppose taxpayers? And that tells you a lot right there. I mean, it's more than enough to base your vote on, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we worked really hard on that, as Jessica just has shown. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the ratings, the 2024 ratings thing I got. I was gonna say the one thing it's very important, the one thing to get, like, do the one thing and don't get burned out, because you can get so burned out. Like we all know out here in Colorado, you follow one rabbit trail, you're like, there's so much going on, like with the nonprofit stuff and all this, and everybody who's connected between city councils, and it's so crazy. So it's good to like focus on something and just focus on that. That was great
It feels
advice.
like whack-a-mole, doesn't it?
And you've been around for I mean, you were a city council person at one point. Like you've seen, you've been in it and you're still like fighting for it. Like you and Natalie, like heroes for real. 'Cause, like Natalie keeps me going too, where I'm like, this Natalie's running ragged out there, and it's
I
like,
know.
so
I
everyone
know.
vote Natalie Menton and Jeffco, by the way. We need her to win. But it's a machine. We're up against the establishment. They are the establishment. And it's hard to like get people to understand that, because they use all these soft, beautiful words like roads and services and all, they'll spend your money left and right, but they don't have enough and they need more. And yeah, it's just wild. Like I wish I didn't have to pay attention, but we have to pay attention. You
We
have to
have to pay attention. Yeah.
once you see it.
That's the reality of it. It's not fun, but eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. If you stop paying attention, then they're going to open, some homeless drug addict shelter down the street from you. We've seen these injection sites and stuff. I mean, it's happening in Arvada, where they want to open some of these right in people's
But
neighborhoods.
what's good about that is they pissed off people who are Democrats even. So they have made, so now there's another coalition of everybody from all the sides, because they're pushing too far. They keep pushing too far. And so it's kind of helping us a little bit, which is good.
Definitely. Yeah. Hopefully people can get involved before it gets that far, but being able to respond when something happens and build that network and build that community of people who can be a little bit more active. It's more important than ever for sure. And we have the tools. We have the tools for it, the social media, the internet, just the things we have to connect to each other and really get some of this information out there for sure. But Kim, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Any final words here, and we'll let you go here shortly.
Well, as Churchill said, never, never, never give up. And so we continue to get up every day. And this attributed to George Washington. What do? We work, we pray, and we leave the rest to God. So and I ended up on a text yesterday, and note to self, make sure before you reply on a text that you know who all is on that, because I gave I said, okay, guys, we got to leave it all on the field. And then went on and then heard back from somebody that I didn't know. So note to self, be careful on that.
That's good. A quick question here in the audience. Somebody says, ask Kim who she wants to be the keynote speaker at Constitution Week next year.
Wow, I haven't thought about that. It's tough to beat Ron Paul. It is tough. I'll tell them I'll have to get back with them on that.
Perfect. Great answer. And Kim, please remind everybody when and where they can listen to your radio program.
Okay, we're on Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 a.m. live. First hour is broadcast 1 to 2 in the afternoon, second hour 10 to 11 at night. Then the next day, everything is posted on the website as well as it goes to Spotify and iTunes. But the station is KLZ 560 AM. And then America's Veteran Stories is 3 to 4 p.m. on Sunday afternoons.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate all you do, your radio program, your activism over the years, Colorado Union of Taxpayers, all of it. Keep up the fight. You're an inspiration. And thank you very much. Well, I hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Jessica.
Bye.
All right. Take care. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Kim is so great. Such a great resource, such a great fighter here in Colorado. Really encourage people to listen to her radio program. And especially Colorado Union of Taxpayers. I mean, such an amazing group. We have all these cool groups out in Colorado where there are all these different organizations fighting for our liberty, doing all these amazing things. So Really good stuff there for sure.
There we go. Yeah, that's been one of the coolest things over the last handful of years is like all the different groups getting together. Like we showed up to start doing the End the Wars rally in 2021, and then we met the We Are Change people because that was right after Johnny Hurley happened and all that. But anyways, like
Awesome. Well, it looks like we got another guest here joining us. Representative Gabe Evans running in the most expensive, probably the most expensive. I know it's in the top 3 right now, seats in the entire country for Congress. Absolutely wild. Appreciate you, sir, taking some time out of your busy schedule to join us and talk about your campaign and about the election tomorrow. You are muted, but thank you very much for joining us. Representative Evans, how are you?
Great to be on with you tonight. Thanks for asking me.
For sure, for sure. I mean, you've definitely made some headlines. Your outreach to the libertarian community has prevented a libertarian spoiler. You know, Eric Joss dropping out, endorsing you. I mean, that's really says a lot, and I think that's so important. And people really need to realize, you know, how hard you're fighting for your seat and how willing you are to work with people across Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've said all along is, I'm just focused on trying to fix some of these issues so we can get smaller government, more individual liberty, get some personal safety back in our communities. And I'm just so incredibly thankful for the Libertarian Party for being just some honest brokers who are also looking toward that big picture goal of how do we make sure that we accomplish sending somebody to Washington, D.C. that's going to fight for our Second Amendment, fight for our First Amendment, fight for private property rights, fight for smaller government, fight for individual liberty. And so just again, been very honored and privileged to be able to have that good working relationship with the libertarians through this campaign.
Awesome. Have you met Jessica before? Jessica, have you met Representative Evans here?
I think we met in person, but I was at that debate at the Grizzly Rose, which you were at, and
Yeah.
I watch everything all the time. We got to see Jenna wasn't at the trial today, but I know you were at the impeachment hearing. You were questioning her at that, so we got to be part of the hearing today. So we're all like buds now, trying to get Jenna.
I was very happy is not the right word. Like the basic accountability of holding our Secretary of State responsible for her just gross mismanagement is something that's long overdue. I mean, obviously, we all know about the 30,000 postcards that accidentally got sent out telling people to register to vote that aren't even legally able to register to vote. And then now going and accidentally posting a bunch of passwords online to, the voting tabulation or count. I don't even know. I haven't spent that much time looking at it. But just gross mismanagement of, one of the most sacred components of our representative form of government. And she absolutely needs to be held accountable.
I think at the impeachment hearing, were questioning Amanda Gonzalez, and because I'm in Jeffco, and you were like, she didn't properly notice. They make all these mistakes, and it doesn't matter. Like they're not held. There's no consequence to it, and they're just like they're part of the establishment trying to go up. And it's I kept we recorded that clip of you being like questioning Amanda Gonzalez on that because it's so good. They're so they don't even care. They're caught in their lies, and they don't even care. They just don't even care.
No, because they know that at least in Colorado, they're not going to be held accountable because they have a 19 to 46 supermajority in the state house. They have a 12 to 23. They're one vote away from a supermajority in the state senate. They own every statewide elected office in Colorado. There's nobody to hold them accountable for this stuff. And so that was a big part of the motivation for me jumping into this 8th congressional district race was because I don't care if you're making frozen pizza or trying to run a state or a country. You have to have a critical dialogue. You have to have some sort of back and forth conversation just to break you out of the groupthink that you're in if you just hang out with your own party all the time. And unfortunately, that's what we have in Colorado, where every major institution that we have in the state is just failing abysmally as soon as the government gets its fingers all over it because of how the government, when it's under one party rule from the far left, makes a mess out of it.
Oh, definitely. 100%. So, Representative Evans, do you have any idea how much money they've spent against you so far?
Oh, I think like sum total, this race is going to get, I don't know if we'll break $30 million, but I think we'll get close to $30 million. We were talking about that earlier today. Conjecture is that this might be the most expensive congressional campaign in Colorado history, or congressional race, I suppose. So I think it's somewhere around like 12 million Republican dollars, 16, 17 million Democrat dollars. We're getting real close to that 30 million.
Unbelievable, unbelievable. Well, why are they so afraid of you? Why are they spending so much money? Why is your race so important? Why is this becoming such one of the biggest races in the entire country?
I mean, a lot of reasons. We'll start from the federal level and work down, but at the federal level, this is one of just a handful of seats that's going to dictate which party controls the U.S. House. So Fox News analysis says you get 211 safe Republican seats across the country, 205 safe Democrat seats, and 19 swing seats in the middle. And of the 19 swing seats, this is like a top 5 in terms of competitiveness. So very, very important to which party controls the U.S. House and by how many votes. Here in Colorado, again, this would be the first major win that the Republicans have had in a decade. The last time the Democrats lost a major competitive race was 2014 when Cory Gardner unseated Mark Udall. The Democrat Party has either maintained or gained seats every single election since then. Big seats, state level, and up there may be a couple city council seats or things like that have flipped. But 2016, the Democrats maintained everything. 2018, they won the state Senate back. They won most of the statewide offices. 2020, they finished winning statewide offices. 2022, they got to a supermajority in the state House. They picked up 3 seats in the Senate. This is the first chance in a decade to get some balance, some collaboration, some common sense back into Colorado, because we flipped this seat. More than likely, we're back to having a 4-4 congressional delegation.
Wow, that is pretty powerful stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that's the game, and being able to again flip the seat, that drives that conversation, that drives that dialogue, just so that we get away from some of these outright echo chamber style pieces of politics. I mean, obviously we're all talking about the Secretary of State right now and just the gross mismanagement that's happened in that office. But anywhere you look in Colorado, we see just the heavy hand of government overreach. The president of the Denver Chamber of Commerce, J.J. Ament, he made the comment a couple of years ago, and nothing's changed since then. The number one threat to Colorado's economy is public policy. And if we don't get some balance back in this state, anybody that wants to be an entrepreneur, anybody that wants to start a business, anyone that wants to remain in business, anybody that wants to have that personal and individual liberty to be able to go out and live their American dream the way they see fit, free from government resource, and heaven help you if you have a pet squirrel, that's all in danger. And so we've got to get some balance back in Colorado, and it starts here with the 8th congressional district and some of the other competitive battleground seats that are inside the 8th, but at the state level.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, what are your predictions for tomorrow? Any thoughts there about how it's going to go? Not just your race, but maybe some others as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're feeling pretty confident. Obviously, it's a national battleground seat. There's no poll in the world that's going to be able to definitively tell us which way this race is going to go. But we've put in the work. Just today, we had one last big final push with our volunteers. We made almost 10,000 calls, just my campaign today, to low propensity voters, telling them, hey, if you haven't gotten out and voted yet, you got till 7 p.m. tomorrow. Make sure you get out, make your voice heard. This is our heritage as a representative form of government. Participate in that government and cast that ballot. So we're seeing that hard work paying off in the early returns for the ballots that have already been. Obviously, we don't know how they voted, but you can see if it's Republican or Democrat. So we're seeing that work paying off. We've done the work. I can't really think of any, meeting or forum or debate or anything that I've ever turned down because I want to put myself out there. I want to give people maximum opportunity to interact with me, to see what I stand for, to hear my policy ideas. And again, I think that hard work is resonating and paying off from a group of folks that are sick and tired of where the left has taken us. We got the 3rd most dangerous state in the country, $27 billion in economic loss from Colorado's economy every year just as a result of crime. Then you have billions more dollars that are being lost as a result of heavy-handed bureaucratic red tape that my opponent has championed. She brought the most devastating bill in Colorado history to American energy. Weld County, where I live, that's got 35% of the electorate in the 8th congressional district. Weld County is the 4th highest energy producing county in the nation. We produce some of the cleanest energy anywhere on the planet. And she brought a bill that was so devastating to it with the amount of red tape and government regulation that imposed on the energy industry, that in the 3 years after her law passed, there was a 90% reduction in new wells being drilled in Weld County. That is particularly horrible, again, given that we have some of the cleanest energy in the world. If we don't produce it here, it's still going to get produced just by the Russians to fuel Putin's war machine and continue war overseas, by the Chinese to continue to build up their war machine so that they can start problems overseas. This is going to be produced by our foreign adversaries that pollute more and that turn it immediately around into generating conflict and instability around the world. Make it here, it's cleaner, we get the jobs from it, and it denies some of these foreign dictatorships the ability to go and start conflicts because they don't have the resources to fuel their militaries.
Well, definitely. I think, yeah, energy, cheap, affordable energy is so important for people. I mean, it's gotten more expensive than ever to live in Colorado. Do you have any other policies or any other ideas to help this cost of living crisis that we're experiencing to make life a little bit more affordable? I mean, what can Congress do to make life more affordable to us? Because I think, regardless of all the other issues out there, that's the one that's hurting people the most is just being able to afford to live.
Yeah, I mean, the energy part is a big part because when energy is expensive, everything else is expensive. We talk about housing affordability in Colorado all the time. Well, guess what? If the 2x4 is more expensive to cut, to manufacture, to transport, to then build, then of course building a house is going to be more expensive. Another huge thing that you can do at the federal levels, we need to get away from a lot of these unproven technologies that the government has latched onto and decided to promote, pick winners and losers in our economy rather than establish a level playing field where good ideas can float to the top. The federal government and the state government are now wholeheartedly in the business of picking winners and losers, particularly in the Green New Deal space. Oh, you've got an electric vehicle, or you've got this, that, or the other, and then we give tax credits and tax breaks to those entities. Well, guess what? That raises the cost of living as well, because rather than letting the free market function, what you're doing is, again, by picking winners and losers, you are propping up technologies or industries that aren't perhaps ready for prime time. And of course, all of those costs and inefficiencies are going to be rolled on to the consumer. One of the final things that we can do is stop deficit spending. Because guess what? When you deficit spend, immediately the Federal Reserve turns around and raises interest rates to try to tamp down on the inflation. And when interest rates go up, well, then guess what happens? Then nobody can afford to be able to access the capital that they need to put down a mortgage on a house or some other type of property where they now actually are engaged in private property ownership and are able to build equity in that property rather than just paying rent month to month. So when we reverse the deficit spending that we've got, we start, buying down our federal deficit. Not only are we protecting our currency and our economy for future generations, but you're also going to see interest rates go down, which makes capital more accessible to people, which means they can actually engage in home ownership or property ownership rather than just continuing to rent. And while we're on the topic of the Federal Reserve here, we absolutely need to take a closer look at how the Federal Reserve sets monetary policies. Because anytime you have Bernie Sanders and Rand Paul that agree on auditing the Fed and why did the Fed engage in bailouts of, at times foreign entities, that makes a lot of people wonder whether or not our monetary policy has actually got our best interest at heart in making things affordable, or whether or not there is an ulterior motive in how those policies are set. Those are just a few of the things we can do to lower the cost of living from the federal level.
Well, hope you keep fighting against the Fed. I think that's the biggest thing. Audit the Fed and the Fed. When you're in Congress, Gabe, I think you'll be a champion for the libertarians across the United States if you make it fighting the Fed a top priority for sure. So definitely encourage you on that, and I'll let you get back to your campaign. Really appreciate you stopping in and joining us. Really excited. Wish you the best of luck. I really hope you have a great victory tomorrow. Hope it's not even close, and definitely be rooting for you.
Awesome. I appreciate it. And again, thanks so much for the invitation.
Appreciate it, sir. You take care.
Thanks. You too. Take care.
I thought the way
Well,
to
yeah,
lower costs is to raise people's rent or raise people's taxes. That's how you lower costs. That's what I hear. That's what the politicians all say. So
yeah, lower taxes, go after the Federal Reserve, all of that would be huge. 110% for sure. Um, Yeah, a lot that can be done, a lot that needs to be done, that's for sure. But I don't know, what do you think? I mean, Jessica, that was your first time really hearing from Gabe Evans. What do you think? Do you think he's going to be a good champion for liberty up in Congress?
think so. I mean, obviously better than who he's running against because she's just part of the establishment machine too, and just push like he said, pushing all these bills that hurt business, which we see at the state legislature all the time. They push these red tape bills, and it's the people who've never run a business before or anything, and they're pushing these bills that hurt business. It's frustrating to see, you know. Leslie, you're
Sorry,
muted, but
muted there.
Hey
Oh, we
guys.
got our next guest joining us here. Leslie Hollywood, a political insider, a freedom fighter, somebody involved in so many aspects of our state and local politics for years. Leslie, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to join you for sure. How's it been going?
good. We were at the hearing this morning with for Jenna, and that so that we were pumped on that, which was fun.
What happened with that?
Hannah and James are they're here in my room with me now, but they what's the next process? It's
Tomorrow morning we'll hear some kind of result.
tomorrow morning they'll hear some sort of result. But it went good because the state was on defensive the whole time. Their experts weren't good. Their experts on our side were great. Their lawyers were terrible.
Wow.
Yeah, like Gary was so all the girls they were like they were terrible speakers. Like it was really interesting to see just the difference between like state lawyers and stuff and like a private lawyer. It was interesting. It was
Hmm.
cool. It was cool to be there.
Good, cool.
So, Leslie, what do you think? I mean, you've been really involved this election cycle. You've been paying attention, doing some great work out there. What are some of your predictions here for tomorrow night here in Colorado? What do you think's going to happen?
Well, so I don't really have any predictions, and part of the reason why is I always feel like Colorado tends to just do its own thing. So it's difficult to really get a good pulse on the state. When you look federally, in these more national races, even top of the ticket, I think sometimes it's a little easier to put all the states together and be like, oh, we might swing this way, we might swing that way. I feel like Colorado, though, like even when things nationally tend to move red, Colorado moves blue. We watched that happen in 2022. So, I don't have any actual predictions. It's just tough to say here. It's tough to say. There's a few factors I think that have come into play here in Colorado. One of them I think is actually having RFK on our ballot. I'm not sure what you guys think about that. I know a lot of Democrats who have voted for RFK who would never ever mark their ballot for Trump, but they aren't marking it for Harris because they have RFK as a choice. So I think top of the ticket, that's I get a lot of Republicans that argue with me about that if they're not voting for Trump, that's not a win. I don't see it that way at all. So I think that's kind of an interesting play. I think one of the things that I have found very interesting in Gabe Evans' race, I live in Gabe Evans' district, and I know you guys just had him on. I was watching that. I'm in his district, and I'm, very grateful to the work that you guys have done to keep the libertarian off the ballot. I think that will actually play into helping Gabe win. And then, having Susan Hall, the unity candidate in that race. Because she's pro-Palestine, she is, pretty much left of the Democrat, but that Palestine Israel piece, that whole piece right there is definitely the undercurrent in the Democrat Party. Is that I think might be a bigger piece to this entire election, especially in Colorado, than we really know. Those are kind of those things that kind of, I call it the unlikely voters that end up swaying these elections and those types of things. So that's kind of a big one that I'm kind of curious to see how that all lands. And then actually, and honestly, we have actually some state legislative seats that we also have unity candidates in. Not sure if you guys have picked up on that at all.
No, any to keep an eye on?
I not that I can like name off the top of my head, but come tomorrow, I'm definitely gonna kind of make sure I've got those noted on the certain races that I'm watching. And then, as you guys both know, I have done a ton of work with Ava Flanell this year, working on an IEC called Balancing the Rockies. And our main focus has been to bring balance back to the state legislature. The legislature makeup right now, we've got 46 Democrats in the state House to the whole 19 Republicans in there. State Senate, we've got 23 Democrats to 12 Republicans. So when I talk about bringing balance back, it's not even like I don't want a super majority on the other side either. I just want some balance. So we've really been focusing. We ultimately identified 16 swing districts in the state House, 6 in the state Senate this year. Unfortunately, Republicans did not get candidates in 2 of those state House swing districts, so that got narrowed down to 14. Competitiveness, we've definitely got, without a doubt, 4 to 5 in the state House that are very competitive. In the state Senate, we've got, I actually think 4, maybe 5 in the state Senate that are very competitive, that we should be watching. Every single swing district in the state House is held by a Democrat. So those ones are all about Republicans beating Democrats. In the state Senate, it's different though, because we have about half of those, I think 3 of them are held by Republicans already that have moved into swing district territory. And so those are, Democrats are spending tons of money trying to get those seats over there. In the state Senate, that's obviously really important. But yeah, so those are kind of some of my big things that I'm personally watching. Ballot initiative wise, Prop KK is important to hopefully see defeated. This was kind of interesting. I'm not sure if you guys saw this or not, but there was actually a CU poll that came out today. It was put on by CU and YouGov, a Colorado-based poll that they just did. It was released today, and that actually shows Prop KK a lot closer than I thought it would be. There was, I think it was 56% passing, but about 13% was still undecided. Same goes for like Prop 127. Another one that in that poll that showed it was very, very close and actually showed it actually being defeated at this point was actually Prop 131. The poll showed that losing. So that was a very interesting poll. It definitely it had Polis's approval rating at 51%, which is the lowest it's ever been. Trump actually picked up favorability since 2020. Some different things came out of that poll today that I was like, this could be an interesting election. We might see some things that we aren't expecting, but of course hoping for. So the Prop KK one was much closer than I thought it was, because internal polling on that about 2 months ago showed it winning by about 20 points. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. And the poll, like, it did actually identify, who had been polled, and it was more Democrats than it was Republicans, which is how the makeup of the state is. So that kind of makes sense. But even there was Democrats that voted against that. And I actually know a handful of Democrats that voted against that, and same with Prop 127. So yeah. What about you guys? Do you have anything you guys are super watching, excited about?
Any hot takes, Jessica?
I hope Natalie wins over here and Alicia wins in Arapahoe, obviously. But I just hope that it just turns a little bit less blue out here. You know what I mean? Like that they push so far out here that people I hated Trump during 2020, and I don't care about like federal stuff so much. I voted Trump because I'm like, I want to hurt the Dems out here. Like I want there to be, a little bit of a hit to them. So I hope that happens.
Yeah, kind of knock them down a notch.
Just a little, just a little, just to be like, you push too far. Like even with the Balancing the Rockies, like even the Democrats that are up there, it's like V-Hill and stuff. Like they're crazy people. They're not even like moderate Democrats. They're socialist, and it's. I'm glad you guys made those like video. I mean, they make it easy to like make them look bad, but no one pays attention. But I'm glad you guys did the videos on them.
Well, and not just the videos, but the websites that we put together, just exposing these really radical voting records. There was one that Jenny Wilford, which is in HD 34, is I'm not sure. She's like basically Thornton, Northglenn, Federal Heights. She's actually in a swing district technically after redistricting. Her district like absolutely the only Republican money that has gone into that race at all is balancing the Rockies. We are the only ones that have done anything in that. And we didn't do a lot. That's definitely lower on the competitiveness. That's kind of an 8% lean towards Democrats. 8.5% is the kind of the swing district margin. So that one's definitely lower in competitiveness. So we didn't put a ton of money into that. But putting the website together, I mean, she had a vote in there. There was a bill that was run earlier this year that would have made it a mandatory 4-year sentence for any individual who had committed a sex crime against a prostituted child. 4 years in prison for taking a child's innocence. And Jenny Wilford was one of the people on the committee that killed that bill. And it was amazing because we put that information out, and even her own opponent wasn't aware of that. Like her own opponent wasn't aware of that, let alone the voters, right? Like, so the fact that this information isn't even like it's that information was out there. Like I remember Brandy Bradley was one of the sponsors of that bill. So when that bill did get killed, I remember them being public about Dems killed this bill. It was ultimately 8 Democrats on that committee. And the bill was actually co-sponsored by a Democrat. So this is that split we have in that Democrat party down there. But now we have a swing district where we literally have somebody who voted for that and nobody's talked about it at all. And this is, I mean, for me, there's so much work to be done. If this election has taught me anything, diving into I've done issues-based work, as you guys know, for a very long time. I used to do elections much more and a lot of candidate campaigns, like probably like 10, 15 years ago. Haven't done that in a while. So this year I've really delved back into it. And it's been very eye-opening to see just how much help we really need in the strategy, getting behind this. Democrats have it together. I mean, they know every single voting record. They know what their talking points are. They know what they're going to save till closer to election day to like really come out as like kind of the big surprise. They have it all together. And then on our side, like we literally have a race like this where not one person has talked about Jenny Wilford's vote on that bill. So there's quite a few candidates like that, quite a few bills like that. But we'll see what happens this year. Hopefully, I obviously hope for some wins, but I think that we have gained a lot, and no matter what happens, moving forward, we've kind of got to put these pieces together because I don't think it's a lost cause at all.
Awesome. Really happy to hear you say that. I completely agree. I think, the Democrats have a professional political class. They're so well organized. They got money. They have people. This is their full-time job to, like you said, get the voting records, build this organization, have paid volunteers. I mean, they have turnkey campaigns ready for these candidates they recruit. And then they groom them from city council, send them to all their little retreats and their emerge workshops and this and that, teach them exactly what to do, plug them in, and they make it very, very easy. They have a machine. And it's well organized, well oiled. And there's nothing like that on there's nothing like that outside of the Democratic Party. I'll just put it that way. The Republicans don't have it. Libertarians, we clearly don't either. There's not really much else out there. There's some groups trying, people who try and do that kind of thing, like I say LPR or other groups try and kind of build that, but nothing as successful or as powerful as the Democratic machine.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely think we have the opportunity to work something like that moving forward. And I hope that the things that we've all learned this year that we can join together and push forward to potentially help some candidates in that way. So.
I was going to say we don't have the nonprofit and NGO base that all the Democrats have out here too. Like it's all connected. Like Jeffco to state, like all these nonprofits and all, like it's all, and all the consulting firms where it's all these people that like Jenna Griswold's brother works for Hilltop Consulting, which Hilltop Consulting, the one lady from there, she's running the Pro 2A in Jeffco right now. It's not government funded, but it is. It gets,
Mhm.
they move the money over to there no matter
Yeah.
what. Like it's such a machine. It's such a
Yeah.
machine and establishment. It's crazy. And it's all these people who are just groomed up as like nonprofit workers or whatever. It's just like bureaucrats. It's insane. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, speaking of coming together here, Leslie, please hang out with us if you can. If you got some time, love to have you on here. We also got some more people joining. We got Jacob Luria, Campaigns Director for Libertarian Party of Colorado, Michael Vance, Legislative Director, Libertarian Party of Colorado, and Mayor of Keensburg, Aaron Lamb, one of our uh, most widely recognized or highest serving libertarians in the state, I guess is a good way to put it there. So yeah, let's all talk about what's going on and predictions for tomorrow and any other thoughts. So, Michael, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself, Brandon?
Hey, very well, very well. Any thoughts on the propositions going tomorrow? Any
I think
controversial hot takes, I guess I should put it.
I will say I don't know about controversial, but there's no way we can let the farmers down, or not the farmers, but the ranchers down in the mountains who have to deal with the consequences of a Prop 127 passing. That's one that really concerns me. We already did it once with the wolves. Let's not let the mountain people down again by uh, preventing them from being able to protect themselves from mountain lions.
Well, Leslie brought up a great point about a poll that came out today, a YouGov CU poll. Was there anything about that mountain lion hunting on there that you noticed, Leslie?
Yeah, so this was an interesting poll. It's a YouGov CU Boulder poll. It was released literally today. The polling was done, I think it was the last 2 weeks of October. And they actually that one Prop 127 is actually much tighter than I thought it would be. I think it showed it essentially based on just their little group that they had pulled there. It was, I feel like it was like 53% passing, but like 13% undecided still. So I think that to me was, I mean, that's definitely in that margin of could fail. And if, I don't know if you guys remember that when the Wolves proposition passed, that barely passed. I mean, I think wasn't that like by 0.5% or 1%?
Yeah, all
So
coming from Denver County too, the overwhelming support for it.
yeah. So, that was kind of interesting seeing that poll come out. The other one that I thought that was actually polling that really surprised me that was polling very close was Prop KK. Because about 2 months ago, Prop KK was winning. It was passing by about 20%. And that's now down to about 8% with I think again it was about 10%, 8% undecided. So that was interesting. The other one that I thought was the most interesting was the Prop 131 is actually failing according to this poll. But that had a very, very, very big margin of undecided voters as well. A lot of undecided voters still on all the propositions in this polling.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of undecided, a lot of people up for grabs. And I think a lot of people waiting for the last minute too. I mean, these ballots were so long, 14 statewide ballot measures. If you're in Denver, you have pages and pages of things to read, so I think people were waiting, trying to do their research. People want to do it right. They don't want to, the average person doesn't want to vote poorly. So they're going to take their time and do their research, which means a lot of them waited till the last minute. So no, there's still a lot of time. Well, I mean, tomorrow's the date. Don't get me wrong, not a lot of time, but there's still a lot of undecided votes up in the air, I think. And we'll see how it plays out.
My whole
Mayor,
household did their ballots
yeah,
tonight, so I
I
understand.
did mine tonight, and I did it
Yeah.
actually over a Zoom call with a friend of mine that's in Westminster. And man, the tax increases they're trying to do down there, holy cow. I'm up here in Weld County, I'm in Johnstown, and I'm in the town of Johnstown. But yeah, I mean, we had ours was just we didn't even have anything beyond what the state stuff is, and then like just our county commissioner. Like that's it.
And
County council.
I'm in Denver now, and the Denver City Council wants a measure passed where right now, if they want to raise, they have to proposition it to the voters right before the general election, their general election, and they want to be able to change that so that they decide ultimately when they get their own raises. So I'm kind of curious to see if this is going to pass. I think Denver was the only county where the school union backed candidates, a bunch of them lost in the entire state. So I'm curious to see what direction Denver's actually going to go in. I know there's been changes for all sorts of various reasons, but I'm still kind of curious where some of this will fall. Or even like the abortion proposition. I saw an abortion doctor in Colorado that was against it because of the ability for taxpayer money to be able to be used that in for tax health for state funded healthcare. That came out against it for that reason, some other reasons, but mainly that. So it might fail.
So that was actually another one on this poll that was much closer than I thought it would be. So this one, according to this poll, was passing by 58%. 79 was the abortion one. It was passing by 58%, but remember they need 55% to pass it. And that one had about 10% undecided still. So when I mean, that I thought for sure that would be higher than that. So if we're looking at 58%, I mean, that's, man, if that failed, that would be very interesting.
Because that's all they care about right now. That like all these older women and even men are like reproductive freedom, like they are like that's the only reason they're voting for Kamala. Like it's wild the brainwashing that has happened. Like it's almost like it's a spell. Because I've had people out here at events where like they're like worried about Trump doing this, and then they didn't even know that in Colorado our laws are like unrestricted, right? They didn't even know that. They're just being fed this other stuff that's going to happen. And I heard with 79 too, it doesn't that make it where you don't have to tell parents if it's a minor. They were sneaking that in with it too, I think.
There's some very ambiguous language in it that definitely that would be something that would probably end up being a court challenge, and it would be ultimately decided by the court because the language is so ambiguous that there's no restriction period, right? So yeah, that language, I actually kind of dug into that a little bit. So that's definitely a worrisome piece of it too. The taxpayer funded piece of it to me is
which we already do. Have you guys heard of this? It's the Colorado Doula Project. They're not doulas. All they do is they're abortion doulas. And I caught her because she responded to me on something on Twitter, the executive director. And then I was like, I'm digging in 990, I'm digging in. And they get government money. And she's like, no, we don't. And I'm like, look at your 990. She's like, well, I need to talk to our person. And I'm like, you get 150 in government grants. And like, he didn't do it wrong. It's like it's already happening with all that's part of the whole nonprofit complex we got going out here anyways. But
yeah,
crazy.
It is pretty crazy. Well, Mayor Lamb, how are things down in Keensburg? How's things going down there?
Things are great. Things are looking really good for this election. So we have 5 board seats open. The only 2 not up for re-election are myself and my mayor pro tem, Cindy Baumgardner, who is also a registered libertarian. And of the 5 spots, we have 6 candidates running. One is a sustaining member of the Libertarian Party and libertarian, and the other 2 are very strong allies. So that leaves 3 people. So really worst case scenario, there's only going to be 1 loser. So we're going to have a liberty leaning board majority here in Keensburg after this election, perhaps even 5-2.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, Weld County is definitely quickly becoming, and it has been, right, has that reputation of being this pro-liberty headquarters for the state, and it's even becoming even more so with everything that's happening in Keensburg. Leslie over in Weld County as well. I'm fighting the good fight up here in Greeley, so I think we have a lot of opportunity to keep Weld County, make it more free than it is. There's idea of Free State Colorado, but hey, let's start in Weld County, right?
Well,
absolutely.
Actually, you want to hear something? Weld County Libertarian. So tonight, town of Johnstown, where I live, where I vote, we have a new mayor that was elected this year. So tonight, our town council had 2 things on their agenda. The first one was opting Johnstown out of the sensitive spaces carry ban. So Johnstown's doing that. The other one was actually authorizing the natural medicine mushrooms like sites in Johnstown. I was like, this is the most libertarian town agenda I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Very cool.
They did opt out of the sensitive spaces. They opted out.
Yeah.
Nevada did it.
And then we're approving the natural medicine centers.
Excellent. I'd be very curious to see. It's probably I feel like rural locations are good experimental for a lot of things, but I'm curious to see how those will work out because they are very different. Brandon will remember this. We went and did a debate at the university out in Greeley there, and the drug thing was like the biggest pushback we got, which we were kind of surprised at. But a lot of it is because of Portland and Seattle and how they've done these places. And we made a big point about that. It's not respecting private property laws in the way that I think like these kind of care centers, and they're also for completely different things. I'm very excited. I've already really enjoyed the direction the natural medicines have gone in Colorado. I think it's been a really wild to see how some of those things have expanded and what they've gotten into and what they've been able to help people with.
Yeah, I must say
Well,
I find it very frustrating that many of our conservative and Republican allies in Colorado have been really harping on. I regret ever legalizing marijuana. Of course, most of them didn't vote for it in the first place anyway, and they blame all the problems in Denver on marijuana when we know it's not marijuana that really is the problem. These people aren't bent over sideways and passed out on the ground for marijuana. It's hard drugs, and allowing these people to camp in public spaces and just openly use drugs, and which has led to so many other crimes. There's a couple memes that went around over the summer with one of the tents that was set up with a full bar, Crown Royal, all the whole jazz, and another guy was just openly selling fentanyl, just straight up. A reporter came up to him, he's like, oh yeah, I sell it $10 a pop. But that the priorities are completely off. As Jessica has gone in such great detail with this whole web of the NGOs and all of these non-profits technically that claim they're not getting government money, but when you really look into it, yeah, that's their number one source. And those that really aren't, a lot of times it's the same backers of the Democratic Party that are getting these people into office anyway. So it's just a big funnel, keep the money flowing. And unfortunately, it's the people of Denver and the people of Colorado that suffer as a result.
Politics is one big money laundering scheme. It's just who launders it best and makes themselves the richest the fastest.
That's all it is. The more you dig into these nonprofits, they like have these people go to college to become bureaucrat. The nonprofits, a bureaucrat like pipeline. That's all they've been doing, and they think it's. I had a friend going to poli sci classes at like Metro in the early 2000s, and even then, the legislative guy was like, "Well, Tabor really handcuffs the legislator." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the point of Tabor." Like they were teaching people to like, no, the government needs to do as much. The government needs to have that control. It's just crazy how these people are just brainwashed into it. They were showing up and writing the signs for the Venezuelans. They were writing poster board. Like it's insane what's going on. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, since you brought up the Venezuelan issue, I mean, I guess it's a good question for everybody here. Do you think this whole Aurora, Venezuela, these gangs, and just crime in general, homelessness, crime, this open air drug use, what of effect do you think it'll have on the election? Will it have an effect at all?
I think that Colorado is actually a swing state now because of how many unaffiliated we have. That's my big bold prediction that I think Trump is going to have a much better showing than he did in 2020. I am not convinced that he has enough to actually get across the line in Colorado, but I do think it's going to surprise a lot of people. And I do think that that's going to have a down ballot result with, like you were hoping, Brandon, that the supermajority in the House and in the Senate might not be as much of an opportunity for the Dems this time around. And who knows, we might even be able to swing one of the houses. We'll have to wait and see.
Wow.
I think it's tough to say. I would, I definitely know people, like honestly, even my mother, who's kind of been apolitical since Obama days. She really supported Obama, and she's been pretty apolitical since then. And the immigration thing, she's seen some stuff firsthand because she travels a lot. So she's like literally watched these people just walk right through security because they, I mean, some of the stuff the stories that she's come back that she like wouldn't believe herself had she not seen them herself with her own eyes, has, I think, definitely shifted her to the point where she's like gonna vote this year. And so to me, when I see people, I always call them like kind of the people who are like the normal people, right? The ones who aren't in our echo chamber. If you're in our echo chamber, we all just make each other agree with each other, basically. But when I start talking to people outside the echo chamber and I'm like, where are they swinging? That starts to make me think, okay, this is a bigger issue. And so not just her, but there's been several people that I've talked to, kind of the more normal people that are really definitely very concerned about it. I feel like I compare it to 2022 because I think in 2022 we had a big crime issue, maybe even worse than we have it now because it was really startling in 2022, and yet Colorado went more blue in 2022. So I like, it's like on one hand, I'd like to think that people really are concerned about that, but when you look at historically what Colorado has done, like those aren't issues that have mattered enough to actually shift it to the right. So I mean, I'm not really sure. I seriously just don't have any predictions for any of these races or this election because I feel like Colorado voters are fickle. So not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to call it for like the Republican and HD 25 until the race actually happens. You know, like he's on a margin he should win, but coming from Lakewoods and Jeffco County, they voted for all the worst people and all the worst things in the last local election with like a 60% turnout. So clearly people wanted tax raises. Like I'm, you know, so who knows? It boggles my mind too.
Brainwash them. It's for services. It's for services. You're paying for the services and the roads and the fire mitigation and all this. And there has been a campaign problem with the Republican Party too. Like even in my district against Brian Titone, I've been pushing as much as I can for Ed Cox, but there's like we have so much stuff with against Titone we could have done, but it seems like it's going to be impossible out here. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's like because I looked into all of that when I ran in that race, and the GOP that backfired on the GOP spectacularly when they did some hit pieces. So you never know.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen, but it's just the Act Blue establishment is nuts because all Titone's ads were just like, I believe in science. I've worked with firefighters. And then that was it. Like, and that's how they're winning people over. Like Kerr and Zenzinger, all of them. Like it's all just this like we're going to help services, which is more nonprofit. Even some of the forums that Natalie was at, I went to where Kerr was there too, obviously. He was just like, oh no, we give that money to the nonprofits and blah, 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 blah. Like, and then he was bringing up all the partisan stuff about Aurora. I'm like, we're in Jeffco. Why are you bringing up Aurora? And then Natalie's all firing off real numbers and real, actual stuff. And Kerr's just like, that's not happening. That's not happening. Trump's lying at a forum in Jeffco. Like, if these people are so, but they win. They always win. It's just
They are very skilled, like you said, at manipulating people's emotions, and with the crazy amount of money that they have access to through Act Blue, it makes it very difficult for just normal people that don't have the time or the obsession like we obviously do with politics in general, specifically in Colorado. And, going back to what Kim was saying earlier, and really focusing on that one issue that you are passionate about and become very knowledgeable, and really focus on the local level. It just takes a couple passing ads, and that those appeals to emotion, unfortunately, are very effective.
The Democrats have an unmatched get out the vote campaign. They are a well-oiled machine that does politics very, very well.
I remember I was on a podcast once with this guy who brought up like what GOP spending versus DNC, and GOP spent like $300,000 on flowers, and then like DNC spent like it all on get out the vote stuff and texting and all that stuff. It's just how it is.
Well, let's see. Looking at back at 2020, Trump lost Colorado, obviously, by 439,000 votes. So there was a 439,000 vote differential between Biden and Trump. Do you think that's going to be less this year? Do you think Trump will pick up more votes here in Colorado this year and have a slimmer margin between him and Harris?
What percentage was that? I'm out of curiosity. Do you know like what the?
Yes, I got it pulled up right here in Ballotpedia. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, 55.4% of the vote. Donald Trump, Mike Pence at 41.9% of the vote. So say 55 to 42. How different is it going to be?
Probably be about the same.
I think that a couple of things that could, play into that would be the RFK factor. I think that's going to be larger than people realize. I think that the other thing is that there is a unity, there's also a unity candidate in the presidential race. So I think there's actually going to be some Democrat split. I also think RFK will probably pull, I mean, would RFK pull Trump votes? This is something I've kind of talked a lot with some Trump supporters. So do I think that, I think with the RFK's endorsement of Trump, if there was somebody that was on the fence about Trump that would vote for Trump if RFK wasn't on the ballot, to me, I don't think that's, I think that's going to be kind of minimal compared to the Democrats who would say, I would never ever vote for Trump, but I will vote for RFK, right? So I feel like that's going to be a larger pull from that side.
I agree in Colorado. I think there are states where there are plenty of RFK supporters from the insiders and people. This is one random campaign. I know some people and can draw some opinions, but their whole plan is, yes, if you're an RFK supporter, go out and vote for Trump. But when I noticed, there have been a few polls now that were done with Joe Biden and now Kamala Harris, and like ActiVote is pretty good. Like I don't think they poll super to the left and would have gotten +7, on a huge bias. I think what happened is when RFK suspended his campaign, you had a large amount of Democrats who didn't want to support Joe Biden, who were all in for RFK. And I think there are a good chunk of them that decided they don't want to vote for, or at least it looks like don't want to vote for Trump, and will just stick it out then for Kamala Harris. Whether that's they are more excited she's younger or feel betrayed by RFK. I know in Colorado he picked up a lot more of the older hippie vote and more of the blue dog Democrats and even some of the free speech, progressive absolutists that are in Colorado. I don't know where those people are going now necessarily.
Yeah, well, and to Leslie's point too. So I was just looking at all the different candidates. So you have Cornel West here running for president in Colorado on the Unity Party. I mean, that's pretty far left. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to pull some people, of course. Chase Oliver is probably one of the most left-leaning libertarians we've seen in recent years. You have Jill Stein for the Green Party as well. And then approval voting, American Constitution, the Republican and Democrat. So, I mean, when you really look at the mix of everything, you definitely have a lot more left-leaning candidates than right-leaning, I would say, aside from the two major parties. But I'm not sure how much of a difference it's going to make. But nonetheless, interesting dynamic to watch.
Do we have recent polling data for what it's looking like for Colorado? I haven't been keeping up with it.
Yeah, I can pull that for you. Give you 1 second.
I've been looking more at the betting markets, which, Colorado is like 99% in the
Yeah,
bag
that's
for
fair.
Harris.
ActiVote, Keaton Research. Keaton Research is very, very Democrat. They have Harris at +12. ActiVote has Harris at +7 in Colorado. I did a fair good amount of research on ActiVote because they've just recently started polling. At least they say they try and do as unbiased as possible. Usually polling seems to lean a little bit more left just because more Democrats tend to answer calls and things like that. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I would be surprised if Kamala doesn't just walk away with Colorado pretty easily. I think
Sure.
Virginia is more likely to turn red for Trump than Colorado.
It's interesting. Yeah, they're at Virginia's 88.5% chance for Kamala right now. So I was very surprised that New Hampshire is also 81.5%. Thought it'd be a little bit more split there.
I'm so mad that I didn't know Lily when she was here in Colorado.
Yeah.
Like I'm mad because I like her. She followed
Yeah.
me.
I know she's like famous now.
She's the reason they
I'm
got
like, I knew her back when she was just a little person.
Yeah,
And it's so
apparently
nice how
she
she
did so
just
well in her debate that they upped the polling percentage that
she
third
just
parties
says
would use
it.
to
She
get into
says it
future
like what we're
debates.
thinking. Like she said,
Yeah.
like especially the establishment people here I want to say it like Andy Kerr. I'm like, you're just what do you know about the working class people? What do you know about normal people? And she wasn't afraid to say it. It was so beautiful.
Oh yeah, and did you all see that RFK Jr. actually endorsed her after saying he wasn't going to be endorsing anybody else? He said there was a video on Twitter today that he watched the debate and was so impressed that he broke his own rule to endorse her, and so it's awesome.
No, had no idea. So, any other controversial or hot takes here in for Colorado's election? Any surprises you guys think? Yes,
I
no.
think 79 will pass because they love people love that. They love that stuff. So I think that'll pass, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, gosh, if there was anything else that, as far as the ballot measures, I think that I imagine the gay marriage removal of that language will pass. I think the school choice one is probably going to fail pretty hard, and which
I
you
think it
don't
will fail by a lesser margin than
I
you
just,
think,
man, the
but
teachers union has put like $3 million into opposing that. And all of their ads like have everybody freaked out that it just means vouchers. Like that's supposedly about vouchers. And it's everybody I talk to, I'm like, literally, Democrats and Republicans in the state are going to oppose vouchers because we have such a huge homeschooling contingent, and they are going to they're adamantly opposed to vouchers because as soon as you have vouchers, then all of a sudden you have control, or state control. And it's been interesting watching the Republican side oppose, like split so hard on that. Like they really came out against it in a lot of ways. And I mean, I voted yes on it. I think putting it into the Constitution takes it out of the hands of Tammy Story, who freaking hates charter schools and runs anti-charter schools every year. A lot of people you can tell don't understand that when they got into that argument. So that was kind of one I was watching pretty closely. Judges, I voted no on all the judges.
Oh
Do
yeah.
I think any of them will be removed? No. Am I surprised that people are so afraid to vote no on judges? Yes. Like, why are you guys so afraid of this? It's kind of funny.
I was surprised my housemate, who's a Democrat, works with a Democrat. He said his attitude is always he votes no on the judges because he feels like they shouldn't be lifelong appointments. And if he doesn't vote them out, then they're going to be. And it's not like he has any other choice. And I respect that.
For sure.
A lot.
Yeah, one of the judges, appeals judge Jerry Jones, who's on the statewide ballot, everybody's ballots. He was one of a couple, a kind of a group of judges that let a serial child rapist walk free in 2018. And I don't know if you guys remember in 2022,
Yep.
there was a big campaign coming out of, at this point, that man was still free. Since then, they actually, so that basically what happened was, I think there were 6 children involved in this, and 2 of them he had taken over state lines. And because he had taken these children over state lines, the feds could get involved. So the feds came back and they actually arrested him, charged him, and now he's in federal prison for life. But he had been sentenced to 324 years in federal prison and had twice waived his right to a speedy trial and then used tactics to slow down the trial, got convicted, and then turned around and appealed it. And the appeals judges agreed that he had been denied his right to a speedy trial, let him walk free. That Judge Jerry Jones is one of them. Judge Jerry Jones was appointed by Bill Owens, so the Republican Party in Colorado actually endorsed that judge.
Wow.
I'm just like, because he was appointed by a Republican, that is the most absurd reason to endorse a judge. Weld County Republican Party endorsed him and put out a whole email saying people should vote yes to retain him.
Jeez.
No, like why even, if you don't know, just don't speak on it. So that one was frustrating for me because I actually followed that case on the judge they tried to oust in 2022 unsuccessfully. But yeah, there's some bad judges on there. Another really interesting one is going to be Don Downs for DA in Larimer County. I'm not sure if you guys are following that at all. So in 2020, Gordon McLaughlin was the very first Democrat DA ever elected to Larimer County. Here we are 4 years later, and there's not even a Republican running against him. So Don Downs is running as an unaffiliated, and she has exposed his no and low bond record like I've never seen anybody expose a record before. She's done a phenomenal job exposing it. She has a lot of support. And just in the past 2 weeks, a week before last, she exposed a man, this low. It was he actually, so Gordon McLaughlin, the DA, actually recommended a PR bond on this man who had chased a woman throwing beer bottles at her down to a river and was then hitting her with rocks until somebody called the police. The police showed up. This man then tried to drown one of the police officers, right? He, of course, gets arrested by Loveland Police Department. Gordon McLaughlin, the DA, actually recommended a PR bond for him. The judge said, no, I'm not giving this man a PR bond, and gave him a $250 cash bond. So $250 later, the guy's out of jail. Just a couple of days ago, he murdered a woman in Loveland.
Of course.
And of course,
Wow.
now he's been
Gosh.
arrested. Now he's in jail on first-degree murder, and will, because we can't, because everybody has to be given bail at this point, unless that one, I believe it's an amendment, passes.
Mhm.
He will be bailed. He will be able to be bailed out again. So this is a pattern with this DA in Larimer County. So Dawn Downs is unaffiliated. She actually has a lot of support. She's run a fantastic campaign, and that would be a really interesting one to watch. So I'm really watching that one closely as well.
I hope she wins, because that nonsense has been going on in New York, specifically the city, for so long. I don't remember the man's name, but he was arrested and let out for murder or sexual assault, and then 3 days after let out, like, murdered a 93-year-old woman,
Yeah.
and it's just, and again, could, at that point, finally, I think, didn't get bailed out. There was some pressure, on the New York State government, but it's just been an utter mess. And that's really the problem. The police then stop caring, because why do you arrest people and bring them in if they're just going to release them the next day? And now in New York City, even things like urinating on someone in the subway is not an offense anymore, or is not much more than a misdemeanor offense by a fine. So, and jumping the turnstiles, and some of these things don't need to be like violently enforced, but it is like the turnstile thing is hard, because most people pay it, and when people don't, what do you do? And it's an unfair thing. Or if you're getting peed on in the subway and a police officer can't come to your aid, I don't know. And then New York State Department of New York State just brutally euthanized a pet peanut and pet raccoon, and I demand justice for Peanut and Fred.
Yeah.
No justice, no peanuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to that point, I do think the pro law enforcement or pro criminal justice type bills or amendments, initiatives, excuse me, will pass. I really do think that. I think, it's Amendment I, is that constitutional bail exception for first degree murder. I see that one passing pretty easily. Additionally, the two that Advanced Colorado put on for law enforcement, the Proposition 130, the funding for law enforcement, I really think that's going to pass, because it's an easy one for people to vote yes on, to think they're actually going to help solve this crime issue that they see in the news every day. And then Proposition 128, the parole eligibility for crimes of violence, I do think those will pass. Even in a relatively bluish type state like Colorado, people want to go after criminals. They want to clamp down on this type of stuff. It's gotten out of control. So whether the Venezuelan or
I think
yeah.
130. I think 130 is going to not pass. I think 128 will pass, and I don't think 130 is going to pass.
Wow.
That's my prediction on those. We'll have to discuss this afterwards.
I'll write that down. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, as much as that the Venezuelan gang issue and some of this other criminal issues might not affect too many candidate races, I think the initiatives, they're just so easy to vote yes on for people, because you don't get the rest of the baggage that comes with a candidate, right? There's a lot of people who just won't vote for a Republican just because they're a Republican. But an initiative or a proposition like this, it's easy for them to vote for it, even though they don't necessarily agree to fund or over support the police. But it'll be interesting to see.
Brandon, have you already brought up Proposition KK and given any predictions on that one, or what its polling looking like?
Yeah, Leslie had some great polling data on Proposition KK. Leslie said it's a little closer than you expected.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm going to see if I can find the actual numbers. I had this pulled up earlier. But this was actually a poll that came out today, and the KK one was surprising to me. It's as low as possibly 54%. So it kind of depended on how they proposed it to the voters. So but two of the different versions had it passing by 54%. And then it had like up to 16% undecided on it. So that definitely was a lot closer than I expected that one to be. So I found that very interesting. And because I have this open right now, I'll read you the numbers on Prop 131. Super interesting. So 131, they have passing at 40, or they have failing at 46%. So that's when they show failing in this poll, but they have 23% that weren't sure. So those were kind of some interesting numbers that came out of this poll today.
Appreciate you sharing that, Leslie. Yeah, I haven't been following the polling data too closely, but I do find it interesting. KK is the exact opposite of what my home state of West Virginia did, I think 2 years ago now, where they removed the tax entirely on ammo and firearms. So I would far prefer that than what we're considering.
Because West Virginia wants people of any economic level to be able to defend themselves and protect themselves. And when people don't shoot firearms ever, no one thinks about how quickly you go through rounds of ammo too. Unless you ever dump it at a range, I mean, to be really up on everything, you have to go through hundreds and hundreds of rounds with a firearm, especially one you're going to use in your house to protect yourself and know that a firearm inside and out. And you can't do that if you can barely buy the firearm and then barely buy the ammo to go with it. Ammo is already still pretty expensive after, it hasn't really decreased enough after COVID to what it was pre-COVID levels.
Certainly. And proper training is just another cost barrier. So yeah, just adding these additional costs make it so that poor and lower class or lower income individuals just don't have that option.
And it's just going to go to a bureaucracy. It's just going to go to this nonprofit or whatever that's going to say, we're helping people. She's going to be paying salaries or whatever. It's not going to even that's what I've been finding in all this stuff. Like some of these people don't even do anything. They do nothing. They don't even hand out literature. They just get a paycheck. It's crazy how that stuff works. And the way Monica Duran was pushing it, I'm like, oh, I'm sure she has friends who are going to be running it or that are going to be the executive directors of this, wherever the money goes and all that every time.
And Lorena Garcia, a good example of that. Isn't she the only paid person at her organization, and it's more than 100 grand or 150 grand?
Her money was moved back between Gary Ventures. We followed it on that one video with me and Brandon. She how is a legislator allowed to fund their own nonprofit?
Yeah, it's 150 grand that she makes. There's a couple people you need, just enough of a board to form these nonprofits or these single issue groups. But yeah, and she still makes the money as she sits on the legislature, influencing that policy.
Yep.
Yeah, we have so people who don't know, there's Lorena Garcia, member of the Democratic Socialists of America, a card-carrying commie, basically, serving in our state government. She's the head of one of the top people at the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition, which if you look them up, they actually have received taxpayer money. They receive taxpayer money through the Department of Health. I think even the city of Denver, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the city of Denver has made payments to the Colorado Statewide Parent Coalition. I'm looking at my notes here from that video Jessica and I did. And it's they're passing legislation that directly benefits these nonprofits that they're connected to. So whether it's the legislator themselves or their allies who then help fund their campaign, I mean, it's such a racket. It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, and people all the time ask. I mean, I was very surprised to find that our legislators make 45 grand a year. How can they afford to not work for 6-8 months out of the year, especially if there's a special session that happens? Well, it's because of this, because they are funneling the money through these nonprofits so that they still get paid. And those that aren't doing that, they have other ways through their donors that I guarantee you they're getting paid. I mean, of course, looking at Congress is the best example of this. Someone like Nancy Pelosi, that's worth over $100 million at making 100 grand a year for the last 50 years or something. The math just doesn't add up, and it's only because of these other corrupt means.
And it's Lorena Garcia who's at the top of the list of complaining that they need to be paid for the entire year and that the legislative session needs to run longer and all this other crap. And fine, I remember one woman, maybe it was Stephanie Vigil, writing this whole article
Yeah,
crying
Vito was
about.
always like, we're not paid enough. We're not paid. It was,
Is she the one
Yeah,
who wrote the article crying about having to DoorDash while she's like running and doing her campaign? I'm like, I ran for state legislature with no money and I had to work a full-time job, a side job. A year I was getting married and I had knocked doors by myself. Like, what are you complaining about? You
and then
have,
she passed legislation that made gig work harder. Like,
yeah, because she had a bad experience. So therefore everyone needs to suffer for it.
yeah, she's another one who like brags about having mental issues. Okay, like that's fine, but maybe you shouldn't be making decisions for people. I don't know, but and that one guy that we know, government grifters, he dug into her tracer. She's getting all these $450 donations from out of state, like the whatever. It's just they're all Act Blue is nuts, man. Act Blue is wild what they do, and they've like probably lobbied for every law or something, but they even I've seen ads for Act Blue analyst jobs for like over 100 grand here in Denver. Even like it's that's a wild machine, man. It's crazy. Or if
One
we
of
saw
us should apply.
Manny Rutinel, who's unopposed, who he's an idiot. He's Yale to active he's an activist, and he has an NGO that's not really doing anything yet, but he will funnel stuff into it. But same thing, like he was asking for donations, and even Jesse Paul called him out. That was one thing we were laughing at, because even Jesse Paul's like, you're not running against anyone. Why are you trying to get more money? But he's like, well, we get all the more money and we give it to other people through the act, like they can like disperse it, right? It's just
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Manny's interesting too. Like you said, he's Yale. His father's actually a senator in the Dominican Republic. So it seems like he's one of those people that is groomed for higher things, like, brought in, connected, pushed up. I mean, the Yale connection, of course, is huge. And then just basically handed a position in our state government, not really a member of the community, except known for these extreme animal rights, anti-meat type of stuff that he's involved in. So
like
very
climate.
interesting.
It's like
And he's a
Reef Farm or
vacancy
something.
appointed earlier this year by in a vacancy committee. So you have somebody who's like basically handed everything to go up through the ranks. I mean, it's somebody to watch out for.
What does he know about like farming, and like he knows nothing about, these are the people making the decision. That's what's so frustrating about like the youth committee that they have. It's all like they them kids. There's no homeschool kids, there's no rural kids on that committee. It's set up to be these kids who are helping the Colorado Department of Health write policy to fund them. Like it's wild what, or Koyak. It's wild what
Hey,
goes on with
Paulus's
that.
husband knows a lot about wolves, Jessica. That's why when you judge wolves when their parents do things, that their children should suffer too, and he does not. He treats wolves like their own individual people.
Didn't he like he deleted his Facebook because people were giving him so much crap for being an idiot or something like that?
He was just such a
Yeah, he brought it back though. But yeah, he was getting too beat up by people over the wolf issue, going after farmers and stuff, that he ended up having to flee from Facebook. Just one last thing on the Proposition KK, the firearms tax. I feel decent about that one. I think that one does have a chance to fail, specifically because Coloradans like voting for with their pocketbook. So anything that's a new tax that's going to make things more expensive, I think there's better odds with that specifically. If it was some other type of firearm regulation or restriction, I'd think it would probably pass pretty handedly. But because it's a tax, I think there's an opportunity there that, as long as people have been informed well about it, or people think about it as a way that it's gonna cost them money, I think there's a good chance that one could fail. At least I'm really hoping so.
And just so everyone knows, I dropped the link to that poll I was discussing in the comments or the chat.
Thank you very much for doing
Just
that.
just for you guys to reference, just so you know what I'm talking about. But I just dropped the link to that in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll share it, or somebody can share it in the YouTube chat as well for people, because it's really interesting to see you poll here.
Brandon, I assume you probably talked about it when you had Hannah on earlier, but what's the polling looking like for CD4?
Oh, we didn't talk about it too much, but I feel like in my mind, Bobert's going to win in a landslide. I don't think there's going to be much dispute there personally, but I'd love to hear anybody else's opinion on it. I think Bobert's back in Congress, no question.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree. Yeah, I think she's clearly the favorite. Go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say, if Boebert had a chance of losing, I think that the left would have been all over it, and we would have been hearing about Trisha nonstop, and they would have brought in a ton of money to And I know they brought in some money, but they didn't bring in nearly enough to really make a dent. And Bobert's going to be safe.
Yeah,
I
I
know.
think Trisha is
I
an example of
disagree.
a
Oh,
Democrat.
hey.
Oh, hey. So Hannah, answer me this then. Is Trisha an example of a Democrat who is going to way outspend their Republican opponent to lose gloriously, like Ted
So
Cruz's opponents?
let's just take it back, right? Like, let's just take it back to basics. How did Democrats take over districts, right? Let's go back to the blueprint. Think about it. They go in, they do targeted mailers, they do targeted money dumps, they do extremely well fundraising. They target. This is because they moved over. This is now a targeted district. CD3 used to be super safe. Bobert came into the picture. That's out of the picture, right? That's not a safe district anymore. I really believe I mean, this could be really controversial, is some type of controlled opposition. But in any case, whatever she is, it incentivizes the Democrats to come in and do their targeted thing. So this is, I don't know, we'd have to go back and look. But to my knowledge, the first time that we've seen a Democrat do anything in congressional district 4. I've never received mailers. I've received 4 mailers from Trish.
And she
I
called
know
herself a
other
conservative,
independents.
right? In a recent mailer or ad?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my sister said that.
And I know that she you know, has done like she sent out these things. There's actually a huge banner on the side of a field in Phillip County. Okay, that's not even the only one. Trish worked her ass off. She went to every county in the district, including mine. She didn't let me know she was in town. No one else did either. They think I was sick, so that was fine. Or my husband was really sick at that time, actually. So I think that was whatever. But I'm telling you that we've not seen Democratic advertising in Phillips County since like probably like the 80s. Okay. So she's doing a lot. Is she going to win this time? No. But watch next election cycle and next election cycle. And they're carving it out, they're chiseling it up. So if they don't get it this time, it's only a matter of time before they do. Mark my
So,
word.
That's
so
very,
Hannah,
very good point.
considering what you're saying about what's going on with Lauren Boebert and the way the Democrats are attacking, what do you think is going to happen in CD3 in Jim's race?
Wow. So I'm pretty sure Jim's race is going to decide the outcome of that. So the Jefford should have signed that pledge, man. Like they don't want to think. They don't realize we're doing more than playing. We're not just playing, we're playing politics. Like actual, we're on the playing field and we just did something, right? So with this, Republicans are going to have to sit up and take notes and go, okay, let's play some ball here. Because we're not asking unreasonable things or even things we disagree on. I'm not saying, hey, Republicans go be for, I don't know, sex work decriminalization. That'd be crazy. They tell me, no, I don't want that anyway. But whatever. That's something aside. So like I think it just makes us more relevant as a party. It really does. And Jim's race in CD3 is going to determine the outcome. And all my money is on the Democrat.
Well, it is interesting. The Hill has a forecast. So I was kind of looking at it for Colorado. They have Lauren Boebert at a 99%. They have Jeff Hurd at 88%, which I think is interesting. I mean, him heavily favored, but still, like that's a huge difference there.
I think with that mailer, they're going to divide the Republican vote. I think it's going to do exactly what they want it to do. And it's going to divide like the Democrat, like that, not the Democrats, the independents who usually tend to vote Democrat are going to be completely turned off at Jim as a third option because independents will vote third option a lot more than like Republicans or Democrats. So they
So,
just
so,
made it
so
completely
just to
unfavorable.
just to give so the difference between the 3rd district and the 4th district. So after redistricting, the competitive edges of the 2 districts, the 3rd district became a 9.3% Republican lean, where the 4th district is a 26.6% Republican lean. So the 3rd district after redistricting actually became much more competitive, which is part of the reason why in 2022 Lauren almost lost. So that's a much, much more competitive seat than the 4th is. The 4th being a 20, the 4th is literally the hardest red district we have in Colorado.
Mhm.
Just FYI. So they're not comparable at all.
She could have sat where she was if she didn't. The pledge wasn't for people sitting like incumbents, right? All she had to do was not say shit about it, and we went in a run in CD3.
But for her, she probably is. I mean, in every reality, she's safer informed. So even without the
Yes, it
libertarian,
is.
she still might have been riding that edge. I don't know.
Yeah, like I definitely don't think Trish is going to win, but this is the beginning of the end here. And I'm sorry, but a lot of people like to say the Eastern Corridor is super, super conservative. I live there. I'm elbows deep in it. No, they're not. You have to understand that these farmers are raised by former Democrats, and these have been Democratic strongholds for generations. So that whole thing flipped, right? So a lot of the same, they're just basically the Republicans there are moderate Democrats. They just don't really know it. And I'm talking specifically just about the Eastern Plains. Culturally, that's what it is. And you'll see that like the northeastern corner had the highest vaccine rates out of the entire state for a really long time for COVID, for instance. Um, when you get to talking to farmers and ranchers about subsidies and things like that, you talk to like they just are basically Democrats that love guns. I know because I come from an old school Democratic family, and there's really no difference. Um, and it's a little bit different in the newer generations, but from like 45 and older, it's they're they call themselves Republicans, but they're really just not because they do a lot of things that hinder freedom. I know I fight them all the damn time, all the time. And it's really the farmers more than ranchers, but you have to think the Eastern Corridor is far more agricultural land than it is ranch land. Farmers are like kind of socialists.
Yeah, speaking of these congressional speaking of these congressional districts, I'm looking at, so the redistricting commission put out, as part of their release of all the new districts, they put out these 8 election differentials that show that it's basically a heat map of competitiveness. And I'm actually looking at it right now, and it's interesting because they actually show CD7 as only a 6.9% lean to the Democrat after redistricting, which I guess I never really paid much attention beyond 8 and like kind of glance at a couple of the others. But that means that after redistricting, 7 moved into swing district territory. Who's running in 7? I don't even know.
Brandon Peterson, I believe.
Yeah, and she's running for re-election, and then Sergey, don't remember his last
Okay.
name.
I know that's right. Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I actually like him.
Yeah, this has been a whole big conversation with the LP and Jeffco and the GOP and Jeffco and kind of in that congressional district. They early on they came to us and said we're pretty sure we're within 2 points of Brittany Peterson. I'm skeptical of that, but it's possible. So they were obviously looking to consolidate all the third party vote, and there was I don't remember his name, a previous state legislature who might have been a Republican, but he's running as an unaffiliated, which might draw or a center party, which might draw some Democrat vote away from Brittany Peterson if his name recognition is enough, at least in the area he used to represent. I would have to go through and look at what that district did before the redistricting to know how the numbers swing, but it seems like still a very
so in the chat I just dropped this the congressional election differential heat map basically, which is if you guys haven't looked at this data, it's incredibly good. And I've scoured it for state house and state senate. I can't say I've done a ton on the congressional side because I tend to focus more on state stuff. But this is post redistricting, and for people that don't know how they determine the competitiveness of the new districts, they did it by precinct. So they took all the precincts, and then they did like eight different statewide elections and determined, how each precinct would have, how the swing actually was in those precincts over those eight statewide elections. And then they put all the precincts together in the new district, and using those numbers could determine the competitiveness. And so what's super interesting about looking at this is they're right. Like CD7 is actually a closer district than CD3.
Yeah,
That's really surprising.
interesting. Ron Tupa, that's the was that it? Yeah, Ron Tupa. He's
Unity
running on the
Party.
Unity Party. I'm sorry.
So there's a unity party in 7?
Yeah, a Unity Party and then an unaffiliated write-in. We have an LP in there too. So it's kind of like two left-leaning. No one knows anything about this guy, Patrick Flattery. There was a Morgan Law, but she dropped out, it looks like. And then kind of right-leaning. Patrick's definitely a little, very constitutionalist, was a constitutionalist Republican. So I don't know. Brittany won by like 54, almost 55,000 votes in 2022, which is a lot of gaps Sergey has to make up.
Yeah, that's huge.
But wasn't that before the redistricting, or am I mistaken?
That
No,
would
that
have
was
been
after.
2022 was the first year we had the redistricted district.
Okay.
But I will tell you, I don't feel like Republicans actually looked at any of this data prior to campaigning, because prior to redistricting, 7 was actually much bluer. So redistricting actually made this district more competitive, and it's a question of, did we actually realize that?
I just want to add to, I can't remember, someone mentioned about the fundraising with the Trisha race versus Boebert. As of about a month ago, Trisha had out fundraised by 5 times. So I haven't seen the more recent fundraising. My suspicion is that a lot of that is just, it's Act Blue. It's just getting funneled to the state DNC party, especially given, that her chances of actually winning here.
And she's taking a salary, which is legal, but she's taking a salary from her campaign funds.
That must be nice.
And she used to work for the NSF, I think she posted about. So she's a bureaucrat, like all the same, all of them.
I added one more link in there, which is like kind of the main link to the redistricting, where you can look at state house, state senate, and congressional. And then if you click on either of those, and then you click on the election results, that's what's going to give you those election differentials, which is much more, in my opinion, it's much more accurate than voter registration, because those differentials are actually the breakdown of prior votes.
Leslie, do you have another link on for the results themselves?
For which one?
The one you posted at 9:35. I'm having a hard time getting that to open.
Yes, she sent another one just below, and that's the one that actually downloads a PDF that has that information.
Oh, awesome! Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, the redistricting commission, it was kind of interesting how we had that was a ballot initiative that actually gave us that redistricting commission. I tried to get on it. I couldn't. You have to be registered Republican, unaffiliated, or Democrat for 365 days prior. I was Libertarian and had switched back to Republican, so I wasn't able to get on that commission. But they actually put out a lot of really, really, really interesting data. And if you are a data nerd, I'm kind of a data nerd. I love looking at numbers. The information that they put out is so interesting. And it's probably what Democrats are using to figure out how to target and where to target.
I think took competitiveness. That's what they seem to kind of care most about. I'm curious, Leslie, because I haven't really talked to anyone else who paid attention to any of this redistricting stuff. I watched a lot of the meetings that they had. It's it seems to me that prioritizing or wanting to make a priority of having some rural and some urban is a mistake. And we try and keep these numbers so, as average as we can. But then it seems like in certain districts, like the rural people in Boulder that are not blue at all get swept up in all of that and can't do anything about it. What's your thought about that?
I definitely agree with you, but I think it's kind of tough because we kind of live in a collectivist society where people tend to, I mean, you can call it segregation if you want. They tend to segregate, and they like to live by people who are like-minded. And that's how I am. That's why I live where I do. I'm not gonna lie. I live where I do because I like my like-minded people. And we have a great community out here. And I think that people in Boulder think they have a great community. And then of course you get these pieces that it's people that are in the middle of it. Um, I think that I actually, I get a lot of pushback on this. I think the redistricting commission did a good job. When it was all said and done, Democrats and Republicans were pissed, and I was like, hey, that's actually a good thing. And they were mad because they didn't keep, like, of course they thought that they were going to make Lauren Boebert's seat over in CD3. They thought they were going to turn that super, super blue. They thought they were going to get everything rigged in a way that they wanted to. And I'm not sure why Republicans are angry about this. This redistricting gave us 16 swing seats in the state house. 16. And Republicans should have been like, yes, now we have a chance to bring some balance back, but instead they're just mad. And I will never understand that.
From my understanding in the history, and I could be wrong, it was normally the legislature that did the redistricting, but at one point, or maybe the state senate, but at one point the Republicans took it and just either missed message or just completely botched this opportunity where the Democrats went after them for unfairly doing the congressional districts, right? And then that's kind of how we ended up with this commission.
Kind of. So the redistricting commission, if I remember right, was actually backed by Kent Thury.
Oh, okay.
So this was a ballot initiative that gave us the redistricting commission. And I feel like if I remember right, because he's the one that's always about this election fairness. That's why he's doing that with 131. And so if I remember right, he was actually behind the creation of the ballot initiative of the redistricting commission. And and I actually think the independent commission was a good idea because we take it out of the hands of the legislature, which is very hyper partisan. So to me, I think it was a good fit to put it into an independent field. The biggest issue that they had, and this just drives me insane, is that of course every Democrat in the world volunteers to be on it. They had a easy time finding unaffiliated. It's probably because they were all actually Democrats, and Republicans wouldn't offer to join it. And they literally had to go out there and like try to, that's why I was trying to get on it, because it was like they were trying to recruit Republicans to join this commission. And Republicans, I hate to say this, but they like to sit and bitch and moan, and then they never want to get involved in stuff like this. And what a good opportunity.
That sounds like another party I know.
Well, and like, Jessica, you mentioned Koyak a little bit ago. My 17-year-old's on Koyak. Koyak is in state law. It's made up of youth, and we're going to have it, or we're not, period. We're just going to have it. And Republicans tend to just treat these kids like crap, which makes me mad because my own kid gets treated like crap by Republicans. When we truly have these kids they are interested in policy making, and that's what they're doing. That's why they end up on Koyak. And the Republicans are very, very rude. They will not work with these kids. So you know what happens? The Democrats take these kids under their wings. But when you've got Republicans who literally, I mean, I'll tell you what, I watched Ron Weinberg make a 16-year-old girl cry. Why? And so of course they hate Republicans. So Republicans need to just quit bitching and moaning and complaining, and they need to figure out how to work things to their advantage. I think if Prop 131 passes, that's what Republicans need to do. Republicans need to figure out how to use it to their advantage, and they don't do that. The redistricting commission was a great opportunity. They don't. They just dig their heels in, and they don't like the change, and that bothers me because as a Republican, it bothers me.
Same thing with ballot harvesting. I mean, we tried to create a little bit of a campaign to get people to go out and actually vote, talk to other people, and offer to take their ballots in, because in Colorado, state law, like it or not, you can bring 10 ballots to the box, including your own. So let's try to use the rules to our advantage instead of just trying to sit there and whine and complain and moan, and then everything does not go your way because you sat around and did nothing instead of actually, you know, picking up your phone and making a phone call.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I mean, why do Democrats win? Elections are a competition. That's really all they are, is they're a competition. And the Democrats are out there figuring out every single way they can to win, and they're doing it. And Republicans are just angry because Democrats are out there doing all the work, and then they're not. And I think even if we look at ranked choice voting, and I don't know how all you guys think about ranked choice voting, but if we end up with ranked choice voting in Colorado, I personally think that if we had ranked choice voting in Colorado, Republicans would hold more seats in the state House and the state Senate. And I'll tell you why. It's because if you look at Ryan Gonzalez's seat, for example, in 2022, where we had a libertarian in there who was nobody knew, and he had double the votes that were the spread between Ryan and Mary. So every single vote, all three of their vote counts are static, because that we have static voting. Now with ranked choice voting, people could have voted number one for libertarian, number two for Ryan, and then ultimately Ryan would have beat Mary, and Ryan would be in elected office right now if we'd had ranked choice voting. So I do actually think that there are advantages that we can use if 131 does pass. Now, I didn't vote for it. I voted against it. 131 does much, much more than ranked choice voting. But if we end up with it, that's what we have to do. That you figure out how to use it to your advantage. Libertarians too. I mean, it's a good opportunity as a libertarian to say, I morally want to vote for the libertarian in this race, but I don't want to kill the Republican either. All the work that you did, Brandon, this year could have actually not been needed.
I mean, I will give a quick shout out to my boy, Frank Atwood, and approval voting, because I think in just philosophy, I like it better. That being said, I mean, I think if there was a better ranked choice ballot initiative, we would be 100% for it. It's just getting rid of the party primaries. I see potentially because of just the lack of sometimes strategicness and resources and people to get involved with third parties, it'll kill them out of a potential general election where you might have 4 Republicans or 4 Democrats, in this race. But in this general spirit of ranked choice voting, I like that for sure.
I like the idea that you can morally vote for somebody without destroying a race.
And I do agree that it would give you a even better voter ID. Like we do draw in as libertarians a lot of unaffiliateds or independents in our vote too. It would be interesting, all the people who say, well, I like if there was ranked choice, I might do the libertarian first, and see it's sort of putting people's money where their mouth is a little bit more and get a better perspective of what the voter base actually really wants and how partisan it really may or may not be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. No matter, I think 131 will pass. Unfortunately, I don't support it, of course. But if it does, it's got to be used, thought of as an opportunity, right? The libertarians, we got to think of it as an opportunity. The Republicans also got to figure out how we can use this to our advantage, how we can game the system, how you can play these games, and it's going to be interesting. But nonetheless, yeah, you either adapt or you die, right? I mean, that's the name of the game.
Brandon, I don't know if you talked about this before I got on. What's your thinking about CD8 and your boy Gabe? Do you think he's gonna pull it out?
I think so. I think so. I think I think he's got a lot going for him. I think there's a good opportunity there. And as Leslie pointed out too, Susan Hall, Unity Party, she's the big pro-Palestine candidate. If she gets enough votes pulling away from Carveo's been struggling, I would say, in a lot of ways. So I think there's really good opportunity there for Gabe. I think he's been working hard. The money has just been absolutely insane. I live up here in CD8. So it's absolutely crazy. What every single YouTube video, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's off the wall. It's like I'm scared of Gabe Evans. There's this little old man about how, Gabe Evans is going to make abortion illegal. And then it makes me laugh. And then there's then 30 seconds later, Yadira Carveo, my daughter died from the fentanyl that she said could come into our country. And it's like nonstop. And it's like, I mean, no matter what you think, you're like, these people, like, it's so negative. It's so negative that it's like nobody, I mean, it's interesting. Who even trusts these political ads for one? Like, everybody knows they're just exaggerating and making up whatever. So it's really that just those swing seats, those swing people. And so it's going to be, do people care more about abortion and gay marriage, or do they care more about crime and fentanyl and stuff like that? That's what it's going to come down to. And I got to say, in Weld County and some of this areas up here, I think they care more about the crime, the fentanyl, they're scared of some of that stuff, I would say, generally speaking, because we see it. We see it in Greeley. We see it around the neighborhood. We see it on the news. The abortion, like nobody here in Colorado, nobody's abortions are under threat. Like realistically, you know, no gay people are worried that they're not going to be getting married. Like those are unrealistic concerns. So I think but I don't know. The Democrats have an amazing machine. I saw when I was out door knocking the other day, I saw a paid person for Carveo. And so I started talking to her about the Greeley food tax. I was like, just so you know, there's this, we could end the Greeley. And she's like, oh, I'm not from here, and it's like none of these people are from here. They're busting, they're all paid. They have their little name tags and lanyards and stuff like that. So they're so well organized. But at the same time, I don't know. It's interesting, how effective is that even anymore? They drop off these flyers. You get 2 or 3 in the mail every single day. It just becomes noise after a while. It's like you're not even gonna. What do you trust? What do you believe? So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see for sure. But I'm very hopeful that Gabe is going to pull it out, and we'll have a more pro-liberty Colorado congressman, hopefully elected this tomorrow.
But just to speak on that point with the noise and all the advertisements, someone very close to me told me that they are not going to, they voted against the Prop 127 because they heard so many advertisements talking about murdering mountain lions and how bad it was and all this. And they were just sick and tired of hearing this just every single morning at 6 a.m. It's like, this is way too early to be having something this aggressive and deep. And so they just voted against it just because of that. So I'm curious, like you're saying, getting after you've had, 8, 9, 10 flyers for the same legislation or the same person. It's like, I'm voting against you just because you are giving me so much garbage that I look at it, it goes right into the garbage. And of course, the Democrats are the party of being green and conserving. And that was another point this person brought up, is how much are they spending on printing and all the paper, all the trees are getting cut down and all the greenhouse gases and with the mail trucks to deliver all this crap. And then it just goes right back into a landfill. I mean, it's just a huge waste of resources. And I do think it's getting to the point that it is more detrimental than it is beneficial.
And how many homeless people could they help with all that money? I mean, they sit there and they talk. This is one thing I think every single election, I think about how they act like they're these bleeding hearts who want to help people. And you watch the amount of money that they pour into this. And I'm like, man, if you guys just took your money and actually helped people, like you guys, like you'd be a lot better off. We'd all be better off.
You're exactly right,
You
Leslie.
really are scaring people that they're going to get attacked by mountains. I lived
This
in
is my favorite one,
national
that
forest my whole life, and I never got attacked by a mountain
that
lion.
your child here in Greeley is going to be killed by a mountain lion. So vote no on Proposition 127. I love this one so much. Don't let this be the last thing your child sees.
That
I mean,
child
don't get me
needs to
wrong. It's
learn
not like a
more
laughing
awareness
matter.
in the
There's
woods. Like
some
that
mutilated
child
kid
needs-
on the back.
Yeah, I
He
saw
got
somebody
attacked.
post a pic. So I haven't gotten any of those. I don't know if it's
I
because
just
of where I
love it.
live. I've gotten nothing. I even like the Gabe and Yadira stuff. I don't even get that much of that. Like my 17-year-old gets nonstop texts from Harris campaign, and she just like blocks the number and then
It's like
gets
spam.
another
It's
one.
like donate, and we'll have someone who will match 900,000%. You're just like, this is
Yeah.
becoming a circus at this point. I haven't seen a lot of election stuff either. Like few things come to our house because my wife's registered Democrat, so usually she gets like a horde of crap. Not a lot of lawn signs. It seems like Coloradans in general are just not overly excited for the election. That could just be my area.
I love this one with Matt Johnston. He's running for Senate District 13 against Scott Bright. I think Scott Bright's going to win that one. I think it's the easiest pickup for the Republicans in the state Senate this year. But Matt Johnston got 2 arrests, 29 traffic citations, couple DUIs. So they send out this great one of him, you know, with the
Nice.
jail and this and
I
that.
actually have a Democrat friend who voted for Scott Bright.
Nice.
He actually privately messaged me and he was like, "Yeah, I'm with you on Matt Johnston. The guy's a jerk."
Yeah, I think my
Yeah.
favorite probably misfire was Trisha sent one about Bobert saying, abortion was the topic of the flyer, but it was like, do you want to keep Bobert out of your bedroom? Vote for me. And my initial reaction was after that
Read the room.
after that movie theater, that theater thing over the summer where she was giving some dude an HJ or whatever in public, I think a lot of Republican men would want her in the bedroom. So it's not a very good advertisement.
The younger Republicans are not such prudes about the stuff either. Like, it's and it's not necessarily overly sexual, but like you had those Republican women who made that cute little calendar, that's just something I don't think Republican women would have done 30 years ago or 40 years ago. So it's the
They all love
younger,
me. The Jeffco GOP ladies all love me, and I'm a freaking nut, so
some of them are a little nutty too in all good ways, but
like there's more important things to worry about, right? Especially when we're fighting this government.
Yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. What about nationally, real quick here, as we're wrapping up here? Does anybody think that Trump's going to win, not Colorado, but nationally?
I think so.
I actually think there's a possibility where Trump loses Pennsylvania but still wins the election.
I think that it could go either way, and I try to not let too much of that get me too worked up, honestly, because we don't have a lot of control over it. I like to be involved in stuff, so I can't get too involved in that. One thing I will say though is that I do think that we will pick up seats. Republicans will pick up seats in the House of Representatives and likely in the Senate too. And so I think that ultimately that means that if we do end up with Kamala at top of the ticket, I think we end up with gridlock. There's definitely been some good Supreme Court cases that are rulings that have come down in the last year that will actually even like hobble Kamala with executive orders. So I think, I have no prediction on what's going to happen top of the ticket. But I do think either way, I think that we're okay. Like a lot of people in this election seem like they feel like if Kamala wins, it's like going to be the end of the world. I certainly don't feel that way. I feel like if Kamala wins, we have just a lot of gridlock, which I kind of like gridlock. So,
especially some of the ex-Democrats have been very overly concerned and cautious about Harris, which I don't not share those concerns, but I've tried to get in that mindset too of it's probably not going to be the end of the country, if someone wins, even with the Obama ran the entire government for 2 years and they barely got the Affordable Health Care Act, which was a major deal, but they you theoretically could have rammed a bunch of stuff down and they only got one thing accomplished.
Well, and they had, Democrats had a majority, or they had, did they have the whole trifecta back then? I was trying to remember. I think they did, for a solid 2 years when Obama was president. Which of course Trump had the same thing. I mean, look what Trump got done. Not really a law, actually. I mean, he's small policy stuff that, I supported, but it wasn't anything massive. He didn't repeal Obamacare by any means. Even if you look at Biden for the last 4 years, what has Biden done? Nothing. So I guess we just kind of end up in this place where things just keep moving forward. I'm much more worried about us on a state level than I am at a federal level, no matter who wins top of the ticket.
Yeah. Actually, interestingly, Biden continued a lot more of Trump's tariffs than anyone realized, because there were a lot that got put on and he just didn't let them expire or kept them on and stuff. So that's been interesting. And I'm just curious to see how the primary showed me that people want moderates, but I wonder if does Colorado want moderate Democrats, and does anyone sort of right of that just fail? Maybe not all areas, but Do the Republicans actually able to pick up what was it, Brandon, like 6 or 7 of the most vulnerable, state house seats? I'm kind of curious, how they'll do in like 16. Well, I think Ryan Gonzalez probably has a pretty good shot, I would imagine, up in your area. But
Well, I
I
think
just want
the Republican name is tainted, right? So it's a question of did we manage to get the undecided voters to actually be able to switch and vote to a Republican? Could we actually get them to mark their ballot for a Republican? It's not a lot we needed to do it. And it's funny because this is something I just have to bring up is watching this whole garbage man thing that Trump did recently. And then you've got Republicans who are out there wearing trash bags, doing sign wavings, right? And to me, I want to scream a little bit because I want to be like, if you're out there waving signs trying to get undecided voters to vote for Trump, they don't know why you're wearing a garbage bag. They literally do not know why you're wearing a garbage bag. They don't live in your echo chamber. That's not gonna that is not how you sway votes. You sway votes. How do you sway votes? Is it the text messages? Is it the mailers? Is it the negative ads, positive ads? Look at everything that we've been bombarded with. What is actually going to make a voter say, I am going to actually mark my ballot this way? That's a question I just can't answer.
We'll find out if it's that old adage of it's the economy, stupid, because for some people things have been bad enough for long enough, kind of at this point.
Oh, 100%. Poll after poll in Colorado. I mean, 50% of people in Colorado have thought about moving out of the state just because of how unaffordable it is. I mean, you got half the population wanting to leave because they can't afford it, and a lot more people living on the margins, a lot of people struggling. I think it's going to come down to that economic issue, and we'll see who did the best job presenting that, who did the best job pushing that narrative out there and campaigning on it. I don't know. But yeah,
Has
it'll be
anybody
interesting to
really?
see.
I mean, that's really brings up the point. Not a single mailer that I got. Admittedly, I don't really watch TV, so I didn't see much of the television advertisements. But it's been abortion and the normal tropes. I haven't really seen anyone running on making things more affordable or fighting inflation, from the Republicans or Democrats at least.
Yeah.
How do you get through the noise? Like, how do you get that message to the noise of everything else? And this election, I think that being bombarded with everything, and now that they're in your phone, it's like they're everywhere. It's almost like
just negative too. Like, yeah, you've kind of heard some Trump policies and Kamala stuff creep up in like the podcasting world, which I hope that's a change that continues with more politicians doing that. But it's mainly of, either open borders and crime on one side or abortion on the other, and not a lot about fixing the country necessarily.
Do you think that both parties have accepted the reality that there's no fixing it, that we are too far gone at 35 trillion at this point? I mean, is that a possibility?
No, nobody at that level accepts any reality.
Yeah, I think being the opposition in whatever capacity that is just always easier. You can raise more money off of it. You can excite people's emotions more. Whatever can make you seem like, whatever you can say. So even if you're in power, you still look like the resistance.
Well, hey, maybe a month or so after the election, early December, we can all get together again and kind of do an analysis. People can bring their thoughts on the results. One of the questions I'm wondering is, is the Republican Party still going to survive in Colorado in the future? And then how are elections going to change if 131 passes? What lessons can we learn from what happens tomorrow? I think that's going to be, because regardless of what happens one way or the other, it's who can adapt to this new reality, who can learn from it, and who can then pivot to wherever the next election cycle is going to take us. That's really what it matters for I think for all of us here. So we want to see liberty win, and we want to see the free state, and it's going to take a lot of work getting there, but we got to start looking at the data and figuring out why people are voting one way or the other.
Well, Democrats do have one weakness, and that is when they bury themselves in disaster, they can't really get out, and they do dig their heels in too much. And time after time, at some point, it does backfire on them. Of eventually people are living in the bad results of these policies for so long that small things will flip.
I did want to ask everyone here, does anyone think the Libertarian candidate will get more than 1% nationally? And if not, how low do you think it's going to go?
So I would say no, I don't think so. I think that if we didn't have RFK on so many ballots, that I think yes, it would be over 1%. But I know a lot of people who like I was talking to, actually it's kind of funny, some friends of mine. The woman's a huge Trump supporter. Her husband's probably going to vote Chase Oliver. And over RFK, so it's like, why? Because he just likes to market for the libertarian. So I think you'll have those people, but otherwise the ones that are, just want to vote third party, I think the RFK will actually pull a piece of that. So
I could see a world where Chase reaches like 1.2. I think there is still a bulk enough of libertarians that like don't follow really what's going on with national, or are gonna put pen to paper and vote libertarian just because that's their party and they don't, aren't paying attention any different. But yeah, I think all those independents, I mean, a bunch of libertarians are gonna vote for Trump. It's all over the place. Dick Cheney is endorsing Kamala Harris and RFK is endorsing Trump. It's a wild world. Tulsi Gabbard's a Republican now. It's great. What a wild time to
Awesome.
be alive.
Any final thoughts from everybody here? Wrap it up here shortly. Well, just thank you for everybody for jumping on. We had a lot of fun. We had some good guests come on. It was great seeing Hannah and James talk about what happened in the courtroom today. We had Heidi Ganal join us, Kim Munson, Gabe Evans, Leslie, of course, and then Michael, Jacob, Mayor Lamb. Thank you so much, Jessica. You thank you again for being the co-host here. It was a lot of fun.
Brandon, thank you for putting these
Birthday.
together and having everybody on. It does
Yep.
bring a nice, little coalition together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if anybody who out there is still watching, come join the Libertarian Party at the election night party down in Denver at Pints Place. Is that what it's
Heinz
called? It's that
Pub, I believe.
Pints Pub. It's the British
Nice
bar
pub.
right by the courthouse we were at today, right by the
Yep.
art museum down there. It's the one with the phone booth out front. If you'll know it if you've seen it.
And the libertarian election night parties are actually always my favorite because nobody expects to win. They're all just prepared to lose. So there's
Yeah,
there's no like ups or downs. Everyone just goes in ready to have a good time. So I actually
we
love
had
the
fun last
libertarian
year.
election night
Ours was fun
parties.
last year. I feel
Yeah.
like we I had a good time. I felt
Oh, yeah.
like,
Yeah,
they gave us
yeah,
they gave us 37.5% of the vote, so it's not totally all BS, right? Like
yeah,
it was good.
that's awesome. Yeah, no, I've been to plenty of those Republican ones over the years where it can be very disappointing and just that energy gets sucked out of the room and it's like you can't wait to get out of there. You just want to be the first one to the door.
Especially when
And
your
that does not
parties
happen at
start.
libertarian parties.
Yeah, no, because the parties start like right when the results get dropped, and so you'll lose within that first minute, and you get there at
And
7,
then the
or you
party
get there at the party
starts.
and they're already
And then the
lost.
party really starts. We're like, all right, let's amp it up a little bit. Let's go. We don't care.
Well, that's why we got to run for more local elections. Where
Mhm.
someone like me that had lived in town for 18 months got 60% of the vote in my first time running for anything.
You're our all-star right now, Mr. Mayor.
I just want to be an inspiration. I don't care for the rest of the accolades. I mean, that's why I actually am now the head of the candidate support committee for the National Libertarian Party. We have a really good group of people. Jacob's part of this as well.
It's a
And
great organized idea of how many volunteers and what they're being split up to do. Like it's good. I'm very excited.
Awesome. Great to hear it. Love to hear more about that later, Mayor Lamb and
of
Jacob.
course,
But thank you, everybody. I think we're gonna call it here. Shout out to Justin and Chainsaw on the chat there. But otherwise, we'll see you all tomorrow. Best wishes, good luck, stay safe. Keep your fingers crossed.
All right, good night,
First
guys.
round for anyone on here who's there tomorrow. I got you.
All right, for drinks on Jacob. If you heard that, people, it's recorded.
I'm holding you to that. I'm holding you to it.
All right, bye guys.
Bye, guys.
Awesome. Take care.
Are we still here? Is it live still?